talking. They were interrupted by Isabella, who asks them to leave the room so she could give Xiang Yi his food. So with no other choice, they decide to go. Xiang Yi tells her that she should be Dorona's room because it is too late. But Isabella says that she came back to live with him in the room. When Xiang Yi hears that, he gets so happy, and then Isabella gives him the food she made for him, which looked pretty bad, but Xiang Yi eats it anyways. Then they start talking about what they will do after getting the rank of commander. Isabella suggests to go back to the demon tribe, but Xiang Yi asks how would they do to defeat Lillian's army. So they decide that Isabella should recover all of her power to be able to fight. But Isabella's recovering rate was slow. But thanks to Dorona's teaching, she could increase her limit power incredibly. She could also recover faster because her demon core had activated again. Xiang Yi asks her what that was, and she explains everything since the beginning. She explains that everyone who has a limit power have something known as source, and that the core that shapes the limit power. But the demon core was a separated entity, and the demon queen was the only one who has it since she is the demon's leader. Then she tells the legend that says that the god of creation's blood flows through the veins of the demon's rulers, and the demon's tribe was established by Isabella's ancestors who conquered other tribes. Xiang Yi gets surprised because that's the reason why demons are stronger than humans. Isabella tells that there is a problem, and that is when her demon core activated, she felt someone else inside. And that other personality was the evil demon queen. And once in the house, he talks with Isabella about the demon queen's personality. Xiang Yi asked her if she changed her personality in other opportunities, but Isabella says no, since this started happening after Lillian stole her powers. Xiang Yi asked her why did she stole her powers, since it could lead them to a way for her to get her demon queen's limit power back completely. Isabella didn't know exactly what that was, but she remembered some features so Xiang Yi could draw it. But when drawing it, he realized that it looked like a penis, so he asked her to be more specific so he could draw it later. Then they both go to visit the forge class, which had become popular thanks to Xiang Yi. Then Xiang Yi shows Martin the drawing he made with Isabella and asked if he have seen that dagger since he has visited numerous corners of the plains. Martin says that maybe he had seen one but he didn't remember well, and he asks Xiang Yi if that was one of his new creations. He says no, since he found that design in the demon tribe and he wanted to study it so he could contribute with humanity's progress. But Isabella interrupts him saying that this dagger killed the demon queen. When Martin hears that, he gets surprised and he grabs a book where he made some notes 5 years ago from a mural painted within some ancient temple. Martin explains that in that book there are different weapons and objects that the gods once used, and some tales from when they lived in the plains. Xiang Yi decides to look for a related image, but when taking a look at the book he gets surprised because some drawings looked like airships, cars and other things from his world. After a lot of searching they finally finds an image just like their drawing, and Isabella asks Martin where that temple he mentioned before is. Martin says that it's located within a forest keeper in the mountains in the Ili mountain range. Martin says that 5 years ago they received a help call coming from that place, since some lizard was destroying the city, and in order to protect his brothers, Ili decided to fight against the lizard, which started to attack him, but luckily Mike arrived and defeated the lizard. After that, Ili asked Mike to be his master and he accepted since he knew that Ili had potential. Then after the helping mission was fulfilled, the locals showed the temple remains to Martin. One of the locals explained that those remains had been there for thousands of years, so they thought that the gods had built it. When Martin got close to those remains, he realized that there were some descriptions in ancient language. Martin managed to copy some of the information since he knew a bit about that language. When Xiang Yi hears that, he thought if maybe other humans from his world had been there before. The next day Xiang Yi is called by Sophices, since officially, Sophices was going to rank him up, giving him a medal which would allow him to get in and out the kingdom as he pleased. Xiang Yi says goodbye to Sophices since he along with his friends will go to the ancient temple remains to start an investigation. Martin asked him to take the lunar stone with him, but Xiang Yi refuses because that stone was very important for the kingdom, although he really wanted to take it. After that, Xiang Yi builds a car and he started his journey. And in that moment a knight arrives saying that the regent had returned to the kingdom after annihilating the whole East tribe. He also says that he is in a meeting with the king and the king ordered Sophices to go to the palace. Once Sophices is arriving the palace, he found himself with the regent who was releasing his power while walking. Sophices asked him why did his father commit suicide after talking with him. Angus says that he just told him the truth about the world and he was planning to tell him as well, but it was very soon for him to comprehend. After feeling some of Angus' powers, Sophices starts to bleed a bit. After that he swears that he would kill Angus with his own hands to avenge his father. On the other hand, Xiang Yi built a helicopter in which they arrived the mountain range faster, but they were all dizzy because of the altitude. Ili reunites with some of his child friends who were surprised by the helicopter Xiang Yi built, since it was a divine object for them. Then they took them to the village, and they were surprised to see that people living there were very strong compared to the people in the capital. Then by afternoon, this guy tells Zhang Yi that his helicopter looked a lot like the drawing inside the ancient temple. Zhang Yi explains that this was the main reason why they were there, to investigate about those drawings, and that guy said that he would tell everything about that in the morning since they must be tired for the long trip. Everybody says goodbye and they go to sleep, and when Zhang Yi sees that Isabella is separating the blankets, he says that he brought his to sleep on the floor. Isabella says that for that one night he could sleep on the bed since he wasn't totally recovered from his wounds. Zhang Yi was pretty excited since he thought he had a chance with Isabella, but sadly he quickly realized that Isabella decided to sleep on the floor. The next day they go to see the remains, and one of the guys told them that his ancestors said that that's where the gods used to live, and currently they used it for New Year's celebrations. After a long searching process, they finally found the dagger they'd drawn, and their rings started to shine as well as some writings in the mural. After that, a secret door opens where the mural was, surprisingly because he never heard about that mural having a secret door before. Before going in, Zhang Yi creates some sensorial spiders with cameras, and he sent them to investigate if they could find something dangerous inside, since they don't really know what to expect inside. After a little while he confirms that nothing dangerous is inside, so they decide to go in, and suddenly all the torches surrounding them lighten up themselves. On his way, Zhang Yi asks himself if their rings maybe broke the seal of that mural, and also if he could find some clues about how and why he arrived to that world. Then, Moto and Ali starts to feel a power increasing. Isabella says that they are feeling it because there is a big amount of limit power inside. In that moment, Zhang Yi receives a signal coming from his spiders saying that they found something. He sees that it was about a mural in which some tall guy was carrying the dagger they draw. They continue walking and they found the mural. It was surprising because it was huge, but it was written in ancient language, so they would have to decipher it just by the drawings. They noticed that the mural had several tribes, and above them there were the gods, carrying the dagger they draw. Zhang Yi, after analyzing it, says that maybe the mural was made to inform that the gods were the ones who created all the tribes, but they would leave that just as a theory. Then when taking a look at what the spiders were watching, he realizes that there is more to it, so they decide to go forward. The team goes 10 floors down, but they find nothing. There were not murals anymore, but Zhang Yi receives a signal from one of his spiders. They had detected a life form up ahead. In that moment, some kind of slime falls into Zhang Yi's hand, burning him, realizing that the whole ceiling was full of that slime, making it dangerous. The slimes start to fall one by one, but the team manages to avoid them. Ali throws a powerful attack to destroy them, but more slime appear and they were more powerful, so they decided to get on more floor down, and Zhang Yi seals the door so they could not get through. In that moment he receives a signal. One of his spiders were destroyed. Those other rank D crimson spiders were the guilty ones. But behind those spiders a dragon appears, and start to destroy the spiders. Isabella says that it is not a dragon since it doesn't emit the same energy as a real dragon does. And in that moment this dragon start talking to them, saying that they shouldn't be in there. Zhang Yi says that they were there looking for an object, but the dragon didn't like humans, so he starts attacking them. Zhang Yi defends from the attack, forging a powerful wall, and Isabella together with Ali start attacking the dragon, but the dragon sends them flying with his huge strength. Isabella decides to use her Demon Queen limit power using an ability called Magic Sword Aura. The dragon manages to dodge it by a hair. Then, scared about that, he starts destroying the place to kill them with it. The floor crumbles and Zhang Yi forges an armor, helping Isabella. But when he was about to help Moto, one big rock gets in front of him, but just in time he manages to create a tome to save himself. They both are amazed because they descended so many floors, and Zhang Yi sees the reports collected by his spiders. With all that information they generated a map, and the place was huge and every room had different secret chambers and each one of them had different tasks. Isabella tells Zhang Yi that the magic aura was stronger than before, and that's because they are getting closer to the source emitting it. They both decide to go to that source. On the other hand, the other managed to save themselves and they decided to keep going forward into the tunnels where they were. Once they were walking through, they faced some rank sea thieves bats which start attacking them. Going back to Zhang Yi, he was also fighting monsters. In that moment the Thorn Queen appears and she starts communicating with the monsters so they could stop fighting and rather to settle things by talking. Zhang Yi is surprised to see the Thorn Queen there, and Isabella says that she brought her there since she promised her that she would look for her. Zhang Yi shows the monsters the dagger drawing, but they didn't want to cooperate since they didn't want to quit the magic aura the dagger emits, since they survived because of it. Isabella was furious, so she uses more of her Demon Queen limit power, but this time it was stable since she absorbed the energy surrounding her. That scared the monsters, making them get away, and the Thorn Queen becomes a bracelet so she could help them later. As Isabella smelled horrible because a lot of the monster's blood fell into her, Zhang offered her a change of clothes, but she couldn't find a place where to change. On the other hand, the other two managed to beat the bats and decided to go to the end of that tunnel, where they got surprised to find a huge door. Billy decided to open it, but he couldn't. He didn't want to quit trying since Mike taught him that he must overcome every obstacle. Billy uses his limit power to open the door, but it was so difficult. Eventually, he managed to do it by using a 200% of his power. Then they both decide to get through. Billy didn't realize that when he entered, he activated a thing and almost everything surrounding them started to shine, surprising them because they had found another mural not far from them. Going back to Zhang Yi, he found a hidden room where a water fountain was, and then he gets surprised to see that everything there was big. Isabella found a bathtub, so she started taking a bath, and Zhang Yi manages to see her thanks to an opening in the door. But like a total gentleman, he decides to go because that was wrong. Once he was alone, he started thinking about maybe an ancient tribe lived there. That tribe was more powerful than the humans and the demon tribe together, so that's why he asked to himself if those were the ones who created the world. But he also was asking to himself, why did they disappeared suddenly? In that moment, he gets his ring out, thinking about maybe that thing was created by that ancient tribe. And lastly, he also asked to himself if the members of that tribe could travel to his world since he was teleported to his current world. Suddenly, a hooded person passes by him, so he decided to follow in, creating a wall so he couldn't escape. The person reveals her identity, surprising Zhang Yi because it was Penny. Zhang Yi asked her if the regent sent her to keep an eye on him, and she answered yes. Zhang Yi asks her how much did she saw, and with a smile she says that she saw everything, and she gets behind him asking him to cooperate with her, otherwise she would kill him. Penny says that she already knows that Isabella is the demon queen, surprising Zhang Yi because he found himself in the worst spot possible. Zhang Yi asks what do she want from him, and Penny, lowering her rapier, asks him to help her assassinate the regent, surprising Zhang Yi because he couldn't understand since she was working for him. Zhang Yi asks her why she wants to kill him, but Penny angrily says that it wasn't his business, and if he doesn't help her, she would reveal to the whole kingdom who Isabella really was. Penny says that the regent is waiting for her for some information, and when that happens, she could act and take the opportunity to kill him with his help. So she would contact them later for help, and she explains that the regent is waiting for a signal to act, and when that happens, the planes will explode in a war. After saying all that, she goes, leaving Zhang Yi doubting about what signal was the regent waiting to act. On the other hand, Moto was escaping from a golem which ends up catching him anyway. But in that moment, Ali arrives, helping him by making the golem collapse. Then more golems appear in front of them, and when Ali realizes that they were powerful, he uses his most powerful ability, and so he starts a fight with them. Going back to Zhang Yi, he thought that for now he could trust Penny since she gave him a lot of information. But then the dragon appeared and grabbed him with its tail. The dragon thought that Zhang Yi wanted his gem and it was going to eat him. But Zhang Yi didn't know about anything about any gem. In that moment, Isabella arrives, attacking the monster and saving Zhang Yi from dying. The dragon was very angry and starts fighting with Isabella for real. When Zhang Yi realizes that she couldn't fight half naked, he creates an armor for her, and he explains that this armor has many enhancements so the user could not be defeated so easily. Isabella says that she didn't need that thing, but she was happy on her inside since she always see him working on new interesting projects. So the fight against the dragon begins, but Isabella was in disadvantage since the armor increased her power, making it difficult to control. Then the dragon catches Isabella. Zhang Yi also starts to fight using a magic armor and injuring the dragon. Zhang Yi frees one of his spiders to follow it to its hideout, where it uses the dagger's powers to recover itself and obtains more power, making it evolve. Then they arrive and realizes that the dragon is in fact a lizard that absorbed the dagger's aura, making it evolve. And that was the reason why the lizard didn't want them to find the dagger. When they see the dagger, they realize that it was identical to the one they draw, and that was the weapon Lillian used to steal Isabella's power. After that, the fight against the lizard starts again, which was more powerful this time. Even Isabella's sword couldn't damage it. Zhang Yi manages to catch him with some special pincers, and Isabella notices that she has an opportunity and uses a magic ability with her sword, destroying the magic barrier the lizard created to defend itself. Zhang Yi takes this advantage to take the dagger, and as he already knew that the dagger could steal powers, he thinks that it is the gem inside the dagger, the one with the powers. Zhang Yi also realizes that the gem looks the same as the gem in their rings. The lizard begs them not to take the gems, but in that moment they decide to try the dagger on the lizard, taking its powers and getting it back to its normal form. That confirmed that the dagger could indeed steal powers. Zhang Yi wanted to get those powers inside Isabella, but she didn't want it because that power wasn't hers, embarrassing her. Before we continue with the video, Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so the channel can keep growing and so you can get the next chapter. If you like these kinds of manhwas recaps, you can watch other manhwas that I will be leaving down in the description so you can watch after this one. Then the ceiling breaks and some golems fall, which were damaged by Ali, and like that the investigation group reunites. Zhang Yi asked why he used that ability since it hurts him, and Ali tells that they found some golems very powerful before. In that battle Ali was using his most powerful abilities, but the golems always counter them. But Ali was not going to give up, so he used his most powerful attack going down several floors. On the other hand, the golems stand up again, surprising everyone because despite Ali used his most powerful attack, the golems could keep fighting. So now they decide to escape since the only thing the golems wanted was the gem. And when they see the dagger, they speed up to block the exit, destroying it. The other golems started to attack them on their backs, but they managed to avoid them, and then they split so that each one fights with one. Everybody start fighting the golems, throwing them powerful attacks, but didn't work because the golems managed to counter them all. Everybody gathered, and Zhang Yi says that he noticed that those golems weren't monsters but machines created by humans. Isabella says that she also noticed it, but there was something weird about them since she could feel an aura of life in them, but they didn't seem to be alive. Surprising Zhang Yi with that, the golems prepared again to attack. But after thinking a lot, Zhang Yi came up with a plan to escape and asked the others to buy him some time. Zhang Yi forges some mice and then a Dragon Ball-like radar with which sent the mice to the golems. Isabella throws an attack to the golems to immobilize them, and the mice start to scratch them with their tails, marking them all. After that, Zhang Yi uses his brush to separate the golems since his plan was to use the golems as materials to forge so he could separate them and defeat them. Zhang Yi goes and grabs some stones that were floating in the air after separating the golems, and he realized that those stones were giving power to the golems. Zhang Yi was going to grab another stone, but the lizard from before appears, taking the stone from him to eat it in the escape. They decided to let him go because they already got what they needed, and in that moment Ali gets in bad shape for having used his limit power without resting. Zhang Yi told him not to worry since he was going to use those stones to heal him. And so he puts the stone into the dagger, healing up Ali. Zhang Yi got happy because it was really easy to use it, and he compares it with the lunar stone, but that stone was different since it represented life. So when he gets back to the kingdom, he will ask Basil for a good explanation about the origin of that powerful stone. Then he asked himself if he would be able to create life if he combined those powerful stones with his brush. On the other hand, Isabella sees Zhang Yi, and she was more and more convinced that indeed Zhang Yi would be the one who saved her tribe, since he is always there when she needs him. Zhang Yi was uneasy just by thinking he could create life, but he decides to leave that for later and calls Isabella so they could get back to the village. In that moment we see that Isabella is starting to fall in love with Zhang Yi. The next day Zhang Yi creates a school in the village. He did that because he promised Ali that if he came with him he would build a school and an orphanage in the village, making everyone happy because now they could live a better life. As a gratitude gesture, Ali's brothers give him a bouquet of roses made of paper, and this little girl tell him to give it to Isabella. Zhang Yi took notice and gave the flowers to her, but she was not like other girls and says that they are useless, but she accepts them. Zhang Yi was sad hearing those words, and when Isabella noticed it she didn't know why he was like that. By night Zhang Yi realizes that Isabella wasn't there, so he decided to look for her, and he found her looking at the stars. Isabella says that when she takes her throne back she will help him go back to his world. Zhang Yi says that he misses some things about his world, and Isabella asked him if he will miss the people from this other world when he gets back home. Zhang Yi says that he will miss his friends, but when he was about to say that he will miss her the most, Ali arrives, ruining that romantic moment. Zhang Yi angry starts yelling at him for ruining that moment, and just like that Zhang Yi's first confession falls into pieces. On the other hand, inside the ancient temple those guys were killing monsters, and one of them sees the lizard, killing it and obtaining the stone. They say that they were there because of Penny's report, and the others say to their master that they already searched everywhere but they didn't find what they were looking for. One of them said that Penny could have stole it, but the master says that she wouldn't dare, and they decide to go since his ruler was waiting for them and for good news. Then we found ourselves in the kingdom where the regent's family were thinking about taking revenge for the humiliation back in the festival, but they are interrupted by a bunch of people that were welcoming them, making the regent's family get into a good mood. But it happens that they weren't there for them but for Zhang Yi's team because they were arriving from their investigation in the ancient temple. The regent's family members were angry, and Moto notices that they were on their way, so he gets out some robotic arms from the truck and send them flying so they could not bother them. The Union Commerce Kingdom made a bronze statue of Zhang Yi in gratitude, since thanks to his help they had new ways to earn money. One of them take them to a meeting where they were going to talk about how to improve the ways to earn more benefits, so Isabella goes to not interrupt them. She starts thinking about how Zhang Yi changed a lot, Before he was a person who could just talk but do anything. She asked herself if maybe Zhang Yi was getting better just because he was sad. On the other hand, back in the meeting, everybody start talking about how well their business are. But one of them wasn't as good as the others. Since his products wasn't selling well, so Zhang Yi gives him a new idea to advertise his products, surprising everyone since they didn't know about that technique. After a long conversation, Zhang Yi shows his new project, which will be called electric power, which if it becomes successful, it may extend to other tribes. But there was a problem, there were not enough forgers to fulfill that demand. Zhang Yi shows his new invention, a machine that when connected to an electric source it starts to forge automatically without needing a forger. Some of them are happy about that since it solves the production issue, but others were worried because that invention may leave them unemployed. One of them asks Zhang Yi how that machine could forge since it doesn't have thoughts, and Zhang Yi says that it does it by using magic glyphs. In conclusion, they draw a magic glyph of some object, and with an alignment stone inside the machine they made it forge on its own. But the machine required an electric alignment stone, but the others didn't see that sustainable since that stone's worth more than the objects the forge can make. That when Zhang Yi presents his new invention, an electric generator, that invention can replace the alignment stones. The electric stones works for the operation of many things that they are doing, but these are limited, so they have to become independent of them if they wanted to grow as a society. And in order to achieve that, Zhang Yi and his friends looked for many ways to create electricity. After a lot of searching, they managed to create a power generation station where they could keep energy in a box easy to transport. With that they could use the forging machine along with other inventions, impressing everyone, since with all that the production would increase in each of their independent jobs without spending a lot of money in electric alignment stones. Zhang Yi says that he has a bigger plan, which is to provide electricity to all homes inside the kingdom to finally destroy the regent's family tyranny, since they are the ones raising the prices of alignment stones. Zhang Yi wants to provide energy to all houses in the kingdom so they can enjoy the benefits of having electricity, so that's why he was looking for everyone's help. But everyone stood still, and that was because Basil took Zhang Yi to his temporal line where only both of them could talk. Once they were talking, Zhang Yi told him everything that happened in the ancient temple. When Basil knew that he had the red stone and the dagger, he asked him to show them to him. When showing the objects, he says to Basil that maybe he could create life if he uses the stone well. Basil, very upset, told him not to do that since it was forbidden, and he starts pressuring him and asking him if he didn't value life, since he wanted to create new lives. Zhang Yi, very scared, was thinking about why Basil was behaving like that. Plus, he wasn't planning on creating life. He was just curious. Basil calms down after reading his mind and realizing that indeed he was only curious, and apologizes because he used a lot of strength to get out his true intentions. Before he goes, Zhang Yi asked why he got angry just like that and why it is forbidden to create life. Since Zhang Yi comes from another world, he planned to tell him everything only to him. So using his magic, he takes him to an illusion where he shows the origins of that red stone, which is capable of create life. In that illusion he can see the ancient temple where they recently made an investigation. That illusion was part of Basil's memories, and in that moment a bunch of human beings appear, and surrounding them there was the gods tribe that Zhang Yi saw on the ancient temple's murals. And those human beings were thanking the gods for teaching them magic. Zhang Yi asked why were they thanking them, because he heard that magic was taught by a dragon. Basil says that it was a lie, that the basis of knowledge of human beings was built by lies. In that moment a young Basil appears, surprising Zhang Yi. But Basil says that in that moment he was God's slave. The gods were scolding him for bringing weak sacrifices, but humans were begging them to accept any kind of job. With a mocking tone, the gods accepts it, and they took out their daggers with which they aimed towards the human beings, creating a big circle on top of them, and it starts to absorb all those human beings, even the children who were screaming out of pain. Zhang Yi wanted to help them, but Basil says that even when it looked so real, that was just a part of his memories. After that sphere absorbed every person, the red stone is created, scaring Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi asks if the stone on his ring was also created by killing innocent people. Basil affirms that, but Zhang Yi's stone was special because it has high purity, and the higher purity the red stone is, the more people died in order to create it, scaring Zhang Yi even more. When the gods realized that they only managed to create a low purity red stone, they gave it to Basil, which he asked why would they give him something so valuable. The gods start laughing, saying that they have no plan in using that low purity red stone since it is trash for them, and they are planning of making another one with higher purity by killing more humans in the future. Zhang Yi realizes that gods saw them as livestock, and he asked Basil if humans were really created by those gods, and Basil says yes. And he also says that those gods are the same lineage as Isabella. Before we continue with the video, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe so the channel can keep growing and so you can get the next chapter. If you like these kinds of manhwas recaps, you can watch other manhwas that I will be leaving down in the description so you can watch after this one. Those gods were so powerful that they didn't have any enemies who could face them, but they faced a problem with no solution regarding his limited resources. The red stone was the source of life in the Zeoluo plains, and natural resources were running out as well since the gods' tribe were expanding. But the God King realized that he could create life with that stone, so he was planning to create more lives so in the future he could create more red stones. The first lives created were the dwarves, human beings and beasts which helped the gods with their conquers. After some time the first red stone depleted, so the gods started recycling lives to create new red stones. In the beginning, human beings were the weakest of them all, but with time they evolved, getting knowledge and eventually becoming the strongest of all the planes. The gods liked that because they became their most valuable resource to produce red stones. That's the truth about this world, a world where the gods experiment with human beings. Basil says that he was the first human being they created, so he became a salve, doing the dirty job for them. Zhang Yi asked him why the gods passed that knowledge to them if they would kill them at the end. Basil says that they did it so the humans could survive and the purity of their bodies would increase with time. Basil, together with the royal family lineage, were the first ones to be created, so they were known as the most loyal slaves. But Basil was immortal and the lineage family weren't. Since the royal family knew how to use the power of life, the gods summoned a dragon that was supposed to protect the royal family. Now that Zhang Yi knows all that, he can relate with the death of Guro, the East tribe killing by the regent, and so much more. This lead him to the conclusion that the ritual of creating red stones continues and Basil is still helping those gods. Basil says that one part of that is true, but there are so many things that he couldn't tell him, so he asked him to keep watching his memories. The God King suggests the other gods to hibernate since the red stones were about to run out. Before the God King also hibernate, gives Basil instructions to take care of his livestock and to provide red stones while they rested until someday they wake up. And as reward, the God King made a red stone, and once inside Basil, it made him immortal. Lastly, the God King says that if one day the humans start to deviate from their way, he should show them the wrath of the gods. After all that, Basil closes the illusion, and Zhang Yi was very scared and asked him if he helped all the regents with the mission of providing human beings to sacrifice. Basil says no, because the royal family has made their job pretty well, so well that they've never needed his help. Now he tells him about how the regents came to an agreement with Lillian and not with Isabella, and that's because Lillian offered the demons lives for the ritual of red stones creation during the next 5 years. That made Angus not such an authoritarian asshole, but someone whose priority was always to protect his tribe at any cost. So Zhang Yi asked him if he created the academy to make high-quality lives for the gods. In that moment, Isabella arrives and asked why he got out from the meeting, and Zhang Yi says that he was talking to Basil but he wasn't there, making him look like a fool. When he was going, Zhang Yi wasn't planning on telling everything to Isabella. On the other hand, inside the royal palace, the king had received a letter from the dwarves asking for reinforcements since the dwarves and the demons were about to start a war. Sophists say that he will send reinforcements since human beings and dwarves have always been good to each other. But before making a decision, he asked Angus, and he says that it is not recommended to send reinforcements because humans and demons are at peace since Lillian fulfilled her part of the deal when they signed the peace treaty. It means that Lillian is indeed sending demon life forms for the red stones creation. The other important lords from the kingdom agreed with the regent since they wouldn't get anything by getting involved in that war. The only thing they would get would be troubles with the demon tribe. The king, noticing that everyone agreed, he decided not to send reinforcements to the dwarves' tribe. Later in the Forge class, Martin was angry and wanted to help the dwarves. Sophists tell him not to do that, otherwise he would be disobeying the king's orders. But Martin wanted to go even if he died because the dwarves always helped him with his investigations. Zhang Yi decides to go with Martin and Isabella as well, and before anyone told her anything, she already had all set up to go. Zhang Yi tells her to stop being so proactive since they would discover her identity. Isabella says that she wanted to see what Lillian had planned, since the demon tribe never had issues with the dwarves' tribe. Martin tells Zhang Yi that he doesn't need them to go with him since he didn't want them to get into trouble. But Zhang Yi says that he is going to protect him because their friendship is not less thing than he had with the dwarves. Martin was so happy and accepts Zhang Yi's company. But Sophists intervene, saying that they should not disobey the king's orders, that if they do, he would punish them himself. Later that day, Zhang Yi wanted to get out from the kingdom, but he came across with some white dragon knights at the exit, so he asked them how could they get out. Isabella tells him that Sophists treats him like a brother because he thinks that Zhang Yi is his lost brother, so he wouldn't let him go to dangerous places. While they were passing by, they saw Ren's, who was being beaten by the regent's family, which were taking revenge because Ren's always used to intimidate them with his powers. Busey was about to cut off one of his hands, but Zhang Yi intervenes, protecting him. Busey asked why he did that if he tried to kill him before. Zhang Yi says that he can't stand seeing how they abuse the weak, and they decide to go because Aces was about to arrive. Zhang Yi asks Ren's if he is okay, but Ren's told him not to bother him. That just like the others, he just wanted to humiliate him. Zhang Yi wasn't expecting a thank you. In that moment, Aces arrives and scolds him for letting Zhang Yi help him, and that he should thank Zhang Yi for not killing him since he was the one who proposed the battle to death. A sad Ren's thanks Zhang Yi for not killing him in the festival, and then he just ran since he had anything else to say. On the other hand, Aces apologizes with Zhang Yi for always underestimate him and for what he did for Ren's. But now he would have to overcome his obstacles by himself, changing subjects. Aces was very angry with Zhang Yi because he used to sell dolls about her, but she let it go since she realized that he was a good kid. By night, this group gathered to the go and helps the dwarves tribe. They also invited Nanai because his was strong. Sophists arrived, but he wasn't going to arrest them. On the contrary, he brought reinforcements to help the dwarves. Zhang Yi asked him why he was helping them instead of arresting them. Sophists said that before he was worried about the situation, so he went to speak to the king alone. The king allowed to secretly send help to the dwarves tribe, so he arranged some things with other masters to protect the king while he was away. On the other hand, Dorona gives Isabella a suppression seal, so when she loses control of her limit powers, the seal could help her control it. After that, everyone that was going to the dwarves tribe arrives, and after some talking, Zhang Yi forges a helicopter to go to their destiny. Before they go, Zhang Yi gives Aces a letter, so she delivers it to someone and says that he will find a way to cure Ren's. When they were leaving, Dorona notices that Penny was behind the helicopter following Zhang Yi and his group. Inside the helicopter, they introduce the head of servants, Selena, who is also going with them. Sophists say that she is also going because her magic is useful since she can change the size of things, making their investigation easier. Zhang Yi prepares everything, loading a map into the helicopter so it can be auto-piloted and he could rest. On the other hand, near the dwarves' kingdom, Prince Marvin along with other dwarves were escaping from the demons, and they were about to catch them, so Marvin was going to buy his friends some time so they could escape. The others were very sad, leaving him to go and find reinforcement and help him. On the other hand, the others were talking in the helicopter about how to face the demons, but they were attacked by some flying stingrays. The demons were about to attack them once more, but Zhang Yi attacks them with the heli's weapons, which were damaging the stingrays even protected by magic. The demons decided to go, surprising everyone. That helicopter was really powerful and Zhang Yi was happy about that. But Sophists tell everyone to prepare themselves since a huge wave of demons were approaching. They took out the helicopter's weapons so they couldn't use them anymore. The damage was done by the King Stingray, who was also using a pillar of the demon army called Papate. Sophists gets out from the helicopter to talk to Papate. He asked him not to attack them since the demon tribe and humans are allied, and they had a peace treaty. Papate says that he would not attack them, but Lillian had ordered them to defeat the dwarves tribe in 3 days so the human tribe could trade with the demons. Papate told his men to escort them back to their kingdom, but Sophists says that it won't happen since they were ordered to go to the dwarves tribe to talk about commerce. When Papate realizes that Sophists was going to be in the middle of his mission, he planned to start a battle with him. Sophists accept since they had no other option. So a fight between these two starts. A fight where the helicopter were being damaged, so Zhang Yi decides to retire. Back in the fight, Sophists were making real damage to Papate, who was very impressed about Sophists' powers. On the other hand, the other demons start to attack the helicopter, leaving it in a very critical condition. So Zhang Yi decides to land to avoid an accident. Sophists was worried about Zhang Yi, so he decides to finish off Papate quickly with a powerful attack to go and help them. Papate was trying to hold the attack, but it didn't work, since it landed on his body, receiving a lot of damage. After that, Sophists decides to go and help Zhang Yi, who in a blink of an eye was beating almost every demon on his way. Sophists orders him to step aside, but Papate destroys their helicopter. Sophists was very angry and started attacking him. He was worried about his friends, but they managed to save themselves thanks to their abilities. Zhang Yi on the other hand only had one low-quality alignment stone, so he couldn't do anything, and he had a stingray above him. The stingray gets one of its tentacles out, worrying Zhang Yi, who thinks that he is about to get killed. But he was saved. Above that stingray there was Isabella, who had no other option but to kill it. In that moment the stingrays gets out of control since they had no demon to control them. Martin wanted to help them, but they were assaulted from behind by other demons, making it difficult to get to them. but Penny appears saving them by killing the demons that surrounded them. She told them to land because it was going to be very difficult to fight against those demons in the air, so with no other choice, they decide to land. On the other hand, Xiang Yi and Isabella manages to save themselves. Isabella noticed that something wrong was happening. Xiang Yi sees a monster crushed and he asked himself if maybe it was crushed by the dwarves' kingdom, since Martin told him that the dwarves' kingdom was a moving city that were moving to the southwest because of the season. While they were walking, someone attacked them out of nothing. These were little demons which were shooting missiles and then hide in the sand to reload their weapons. Xiang Yi discovers their pattern and plans to use his low-quality stone to attack them, so he asked Isabella to distract them. Meanwhile, the demons realizes that Xiang Yi is the weakest, so they decide to attack him first. But Xiang Yi finishes his plan. He created some trampoline with which they managed to put them all together and Isabella defeats them. Xiang Yi was happy about that, but Isabella told him not to be since some pillar demons could arrive. She tells him that there are 12 pillars which are more powerful than Ren's, and given his current condition it would be very difficult to kill just one. While they were talking, the ground starts trembling and Billion, the third rank of the pillars, appears. Isabella gets hurt when trying to escape Balian. Since Balian was a fool demon, he was wondering why he was there, and when seeing below his feet, his dead friends were there, so he blames Xiang Yi and Isabella for that. Xiang Yi was angry and told him that he was the one who killed his own friends, so Balian got sad and started to cry. Xiang Yi wanted to take advantage of that moment to escape, but Balian was already mad and wanted to kill them, since if it wasn't for them, Balian would have never killed his friends. In that moment, Balian starts to attack them. Isabella receives the attack, and since she had an injured arm, she decided to use her Demon Queen aura, but it neutralizes out of nothing. Balian, taking advantage of her being distracted, Balian punches her, sending her flying. But Xiang Yi saves her using his brush and starts taunting Balian to see if he fights him. But he ignores him since he was weak, so he goes straight for Isabella, but Xiang Yi forges a sand ramp so she could go flying. While she was running, Isabella was impressed about how Xiang Yi could forge that ramp being far away. When close to her, Xiang Yi asked Isabella if she was okay, but Isabella argues with him because he didn't escape, since Balian wasn't even using all of his power. In that moment, Balian gets behind her quickly. She was expecting that, so she takes her sword out to counter-attack. But Balian can feel that she might cut his arm off, so he stops, creating a wind wave which sends our protagonists flying. As Isabella was injured bad, she asked Xiang Yi to escape, but he tells her to leave it all in his hands. Isabella says that he could not do anything since he only has an ordinary brush, but Xiang Yi says that it would be enough. On the other hand, Balian was very angry and starts attacking Xiang Yi at a high speed. Xiang Yi forges several walls to protect himself, making Balian even angrier since he was just using tricks. When Balian reaches him at last, it was just a rock statue, since Xiang Yi was escaping with a rock, making it move with the sand. When Balian saw that, he started attacking them again, but Xiang Yi avoided every attack. Balian was angry and was telling him to fight like a man while destroying every of Xiang Yi's barriers, and Xiang Yi told him that he shouldn't be one of the pillars because he was too slow. Balian was really angry and he was going to kill him, but once Xiang Yi had him facing him, activated the sand trap he forged. As Balian's body were too heavy, he starts to be swallowed by the sand, and Xiang Yi takes advantage of that moment to escape. But in that moment, Xiang Yi starts to sink into the sand because Balian was spinning very fast to suck him in. Xiang Yi wanted to escape, but the sand was moving too fast. Xiang Yi creates a trampoline to escape, and since he had no other choice, he forges the sand, changing its properties, surprising Balian because he didn't expect that. In that part, they doesn't explain to us how did he do that. They only let us know that Iluo sold him a high-class superior forged stone. Once Balian escaped, he attacks Xiang Yi again, but as nothing was working, he creates a new barrier, making Balian to crash with it since he couldn't see it. What he created was a tempered glass that didn't break with the attacks. Xiang Yi starts to make fun of him again. Balian was very angry and start to throw a series of punches with which manages to break the tempered glass. But Xiang Yi had already created several tempered glasses. Xiang Yi makes fun of him once more. Balian could not handle that anymore, so he uses his true power, breaking the glass quickly with a header. Then he steps back to use an ability called Ray Fang, with which he destroys the tempered glasses and reaching Xiang Yi, who was expecting him, and quickly he creates the Prince Rupert's drop, which is a very hard material. Balian ended up injured after crashing with it, and Isabella uses her great velocity to cut his head off. Once he couldn't move anymore, and before he died, he realized that Isabella was the Demon Queen. Isabella couldn't keep up anymore. She was pretty injured and she was asking to herself why she couldn't use her limit power before. But Xiang Yi decides to look for a safer place to heal her. He found a cave, and once he was taking care of her, he worries because he didn't have anything to heal her wounds. Also, his alignment stone was about to get dry, and in that moment the Thorn Queen told him to remove her suppression seal that was in Isabella's sword that Dorona gave to her. And it was because of that Isabella couldn't use her limit power. After knowing that, Xiangyi breaks the suppression seal with Isabella's sword. In that moment, Isabella wakes up behind him, making Xiangyi happy, but out of nothing she grabs him by his neck. Xiangyi, worried, asked her if she didn't remember him. Isabella, remembering the kiss with a smile, stops choking him, and from now on he would have to obey to everything she says. Xiangyi realizes that now Isabella had the Demon Queen personality. He was happy about it since she would be able to recover from her wounds by herself. Xiangyi decides to obey her, and then he would look for a way to wake up the real Isabella. She demands to him to forge a bathtub. He says that his brush didn't have enough energy, but Isabella tells not to disobey, and with a bit of fear, and very fast, he forges a bath for her. Xiangyi was about to leave, but she demands him to stay and to warm the water for her while she takes a bath, and he only wanted to watch her while doing it. She congratulates him for his work and she orders him to get up, surprising him. But he didn't disobey and he got up looking away. But in that moment, Isabella put her feet into Xiangyi's shoulders, making him nervous, so she asked him if there was a problem. Xiangyi says no, and then she takes her feet off him, calming him down. But then Isabella turned her body and ordered him to give her a massage. Xiangyi didn't know how to behave. While he was getting close to her, she told him to hurry up and warns him if he looks more that she would take his eyes off. He massages her with fear and looking away while Isabella was enjoying all that. The next day he forges a tricycle, but he was suffering to move it since he had a weak body. Then they hear strong sound in front of them, and it was Prince Marvin, who is still running away from demons. A lot of demons attacks him in that moment, but Marvin forges a hand from where a disc came from and killed all demons following him. He couldn't go on anymore because he used a lot of mental power by forging things, but he decides to go on since he had an important message to deliver to his father. But behind him, other demons appeared and started to attack him again. Marvin forges a cannon with which defeats a lot of them. But he was over his limits now. He was starting to lose consciousness. In that moment, some black feathers start to fall from the sky. Marvin was scared because he knew what that meant. He receives the attack by not having enough strength to avoid it. The first rank pillar called Darkula was the one responsible of this. From far away, Xiangyi wanted to help Marvin since he had a lunar stone on his hammer. He asked Isabella a favor, to save him, because if they could save him, they could get that lunar stone and find their group of friends. But Isabella didn't want to, because she hadn't recovered all of her power, and also Darkula was the former demon king and her father's disciple. Xiangyi begs her to go and get that lunar stone, but Isabella says that if he wanted that stone so much that he should go alone. Darkula was getting close to Marvin and he was going to kill him, but Xiangyi creates a sand screen to save Marvin and also to gather all his things and then escape from that place. But in that moment his brush energy runs out. Xiangyi gets scared, and after a moment, Darkula stands on top of him and starts attacking him with his scythe, destroying half of the wood. But Xiangyi manages to survive because Isabella managed to parry the attack. And back with Xiangyi, he asked her to destroy the hammer to use the lunar stone. Isabella notices that Xiangyi was hurt, so she got mad, starting a fight with Darkula. The others noticed that Xiangyi was alone and wanted to kill him. But Isabella hears that, and furious she lands an attack towards them, defeating them all, and after that she decides to end that fight quick to avoid Xiangyi to be harmed. Darkula uses his special technique to protect himself from Isabella, and once the attacks collide, it killed most of the demons. Xiangyi was also in danger, but Isabella manages to save him, and when Darkula sees High Scythe, he noticed that it was being damaged because of the fight against Isabella. Darkula already knew that she was the demon queen, and he says that she has improved since the last time he saw her using her powers. Isabella tells him that she is surprised to see that he follows Lillian now, and the other demons now that knew that she was the demon queen didn't know who to serve. The demon captain says that Lillian is their queen now and demons only follows the stronger ones, and Isabella now was considered a traitor. Then he says that Lillian would grant them any wish to whoever captured Isabella alive. Once they heard that, they prepare to capture her, and Isabella asked Xiangyi to hold tight on her since Darkula was about to use a very powerful ability. Once Darkula is using it, everything goes dark, but instead of attacking Isabella, he killed all the other demons who wanted to capture her. He left none of them alive. Before Darkula leaves, he tells Isabella that he would be waiting for her in the demon tribe, surprising Isabella, wondering if Darkula was her enemy or ally. Then Xiangyi gets the lunar stone. He was happy, since with that, they would be able to reunite with their group faster. Isabella then covers her horns to keep her identity hidden. Then we found ourselves in a war between the demon army against the dwarves' kingdom. The dwarves were losing that war because all of their weapons were being destroyed, and also the demons had a rank 4 pillar called Chiron's, who takes out of his body an egg which once it explodes it creates a cloud of flies that exploded once they got close to the kingdom. One of the dwarves noticed that and asked to change the castle route, but they answer that they cannot do that since something was keeping the kingdom to change routes, and it was about some slimes that were covering the wheels. The guilty of all that was the 9th rank pillar called Sumux, who was in company of the 6th rank pillar called Suisuo. When these 3 pillars are together, the demon's strength increases, and those demons were already entering the kingdom, killing everyone who stood before him. One of the dwarves goes to inform that demons are now going through their defenses, panicking everyone. But the dwarves' king, Khan, orders them to calm down. His son Roland realized that his father was about to activate something powerful and told him that his body wouldn't resist that. But he wants to do it to save his kingdom. With his scepter he activates the kingdom forge, which allows him to control his moving kingdom. And with that he killed all the demons that were entering. Then he get out some giant arms with which he starts to kill the other demons. When the dwarves noticed that his king was fighting, they started to work harder. Once the pillars realized that Khan was the one controlling the kingdom, they decided to join into the war. Since Khan was getting weak and he didn't have a body capable to do it, he could only use 30% of the kingdom's power. In that moment he starts to worry because he couldn't control his robotic arm, because Suao was controlling it. And with the help of the other pillars they managed to destroy the arm. But the dwarves had created a spare one. Khan uses more power to protect his kingdom even if he dies, so he starts killing the vast majority of demons. Khan's body was getting weaker and the other dwarves wanted to help him, but they couldn't since the lunar stone can only be used by kings or princes. There were 3 lunar stones within the kingdom. One was used to move it. The other one Marvin had it, but he wasn't there, and the other one in Khan's scepter, since Khan couldn't do it alone. They needed another one who could forge with him. Roland was sad not being able to help his father since he had no talent to forge. Khan was starting to bleed, but he didn't want to give up and kept fighting. Sumuk starts attacking the kingdom, leaving Khan really injured. When the demons realized that Khan couldn't keep fighting, they all decided to attack at the same time. But suddenly a healing magic starts to heal all the dwarves, and one demon informs that reinforcements had arrived. And behind them some missiles start to fall, killing a lot of demons. The dwarves were wondering if Marvin had arrived, but it wasn't him. It was Zhangyi's team lead by Martin. Khan recognizes Martin and gives the order to not attack them by accident. Martin gets into the kingdom to help Khan while the others are fighting demons, where Suao starts to attack first. But Penny destroys Suasuo's threads very easy, and she starts to make fun of the pillars. The pillars were very surprised since they didn't expect the human kingdom to help the dwarves. They wanted to kill them, but they were wondering if that would affect the relationship between the human tribe and the demon tribe. Suasuo says that they better kill them because they intervened in the war. But in that moment a person gets above them and throws Papate's head in front of the pillars. This person was Sophus's, which says that if any of them would dare to put a finger on his friends, they would pay. Chiron's was happy about his brother's death since now he could rank up. The other demons were feeling confident and they were about to fight that group of people since they now had an army, and the pillars were also with them. Sophus's uses an ability and Alina with her magic increases the size of that ability, making it defeat a lot of demons. Chiron's manages to protect himself just by a hair, but his shield was about to break. That scared the other pillars because now they had to fight carefully against Sophus's. Chiron's gets mad and uses his maximum power to kill Sophus's. But in that moment the corpse pillar ordered them to retire. Chiron's wanted to fight against the humans, but the corpse pillar says not to disobey orders, and with no other option all the demons start to flee. Alina was happy about it since she could only use her magnification power once a day. With the help of Martin, they were repairing the kingdom. Khan was very tired and thanks Martin for his help. But he says that he haven't done anything yet because when using kingdom forges he gets tired very quick. Then Martin congratulates him because he was fighting like that for months. But Khan says that he was fighting with Marvin because he was the one who could take advantage of the kingdom's full power. When Martin remembers Marvin he asked where he was, but Roland says that he was killed by the demon tribe. He explains that they didn't fear the demon tribe before, but Khan couldn't stand seeing his people die, so he accepted a peace treaty with the demon tribe. But when they were talking about putting an end to the war, the demons attacked Marvin in the middle of the conversation and nobody from his group had arrived yet. When Martin hears it he says that he will help the dwarves, and Sophus's asks Khan if any other human arrived to the kingdom before they did. Khan says no, since they were the only ones from the human tribe. After that he starts bleeding, worrying everyone, and Fiona wanted to examine him to see if she could help him. Roland told her not to touch his father, but Martin convinced him. They would treat his father the next day. That night when Roland was alone, he went to speak to the corpse pillar, and we find out that it was him who sent Marvin out of the kingdom. He also drained Khan's power to destroy the kingdom, and the pillar told him to be patient since very soon he would be the dwarves' king. Roland was very angry since he always said that, so he asked for an exact date. And this pillar said that in a few days he would send troops to finish off the kingdom for real. That said, they leave, now in the Demon's Queen castle. The corpse pillar Raymond was thinking about absorbing many corpses when the war starts again. That would make him really strong, so much that even Darkula would be on his side. Even though Lillian would be pissed for what he was going to do, he wasn't stopping. The next day when Fiona finished diagnosing Khan, she says that it was very weird since his body wasn't injured. Roland asked if that could be because he forged too much, but it wasn't that, since Martin also forged a lot, but he wasn't as bad as Khan. When Fiona gathers everything she knows, she mentions that Khan might be poisoned, surprising Roland because the venom he used was almost impossible to detect. Fiona says that even medicine won't work since that venom was unknown, and the only way to save him was to find Xiang Yi. In that moment, some dwarves say that Roland was the best pharmacologist in the kingdom. But as he didn't want to save him, he says that his knowledge isn't enough. The others say that he should try at least, but pretending to be sad, he kneels before Khan, and the others left him alone, so Roland could clear his mind and be happy because everything was going according to his plan. On the other hand, Xiang Yi and Isabella arrives to the place the dwarves had fought against the demons. Xiang Yi was surprised because there were no bodies despite the blood, and Isabella says that Raymond, the corpse pillar, might have absorbed those bodies. He could also use them as puppets, an ability useful in long battles. Xiang Yi asks if she could beat him even if he absorbs a lot of corpses, and Isabella says that the last demon gave her that ability, and since she has a demon queen limit power, she could crush him. Xiang Yi asks if he had a weak point, but Isabella didn't have that information. Once they were going back to the ship, Isabella wonders why did she talk that much. Then Marvin wakes up and asks them if they were the ones who saved them, and Xiang Yi said yes, but they decided to talk inside the ship. On the other hand, in the dwarves' kingdom, some dwarves were worried about Khan. Sophists decides to go and look for Xiang Yi since that's what's most important for him. In that moment, one dwarf arrives and informs that the demons were gathering to attack again, and this time a ship unidentified was approaching towards the kingdom, and everybody was getting ready for the fight. Some of them wanted to name Roland their new king so they could have a leader who could guide them. Roland says that he doesn't have his brother's or father's ability to forge, but Martin handed over the scepter to him and told him that he was going to help. When Roland was sitting down in the throne, he remembers when he was a child and everyone praised him for being smart creating medicines, but he wondered why he didn't have talent to forge like his brother, and he thought that when he grew up he would only be useful to serve others. He didn't want to be a pharmacologist anymore. Then we can see that the dwarves that were with Marvin, actually, they had arrived to the kingdom, but Roland had killed them and made their bodies disappear with acid. He had always pretended to be a good person, but now at last he could become king. And as his first order, he ordered all the dwarves to surrender before the demons. Everyone is surprised about that and asks him why is he giving that order, and Roland says that the demons will leave them alone as long as they give 100 lives monthly. Now everybody sees Roland's true face. Roland knew that they weren't sent by the human tribe and he ordered to capture them. Everyone was wondering what should they do. But in that moment, in destroying part of the castle, Xiang Yi arrives with Isabella and Marvin. When Sophists sees Xiang Yi, he quickly asked if he was okay. Isabella was a bit jealous for that. Roland, on the other hand, when he sees his brother, he says that he would tell everything to him once he fully recovered. When Bart sees Roland, he punches him hard, sending him flying, since he already knew that he had been plotting with the demons to destroy their own kingdom, to avoid being discovered. Roland told him that he was wrong, but Bart says that he already confirmed that since the demons themselves told him. Roland wanted to save himself and says that the demons brainwashed him, making all the ministers doubt about Bart's words. Then he says that the humans were working with the demons to destroy their kingdom. Most of the ministers agreed with Roland, but Bart was trying to tell them that they were wrong, and Sophists couldn't hold that situation and was about to start a fight with those dwarves, but Xiang Yi asked him to leave it in his hands. And when getting close to Roland, he gives a lot of motives why they were helping them. Xiang Yi asked him to take him to Khan to answer all of their questions, and he says that just for having Khan's scepter, that doesn't make him the king, since his brother Bart had arrived to the kingdom. That caused the ministers to wonder which prince they should support. To make him shut, Roland accepts to taking him to his father and warns him that if he can't save him, all the human beings inside the kingdom should return to their kingdom. To save Khan, Xiang Yi takes a potion out. In that moment, we can see a memory from Xiang Yi taking his earnings to his teacher Hong Lion. He gave it that so she could stop working with Angus and start working for him, and he mentions all the benefits she could get. Hong Lion was hesitant, but he gives her a potion as a sign of sincerity, since it was an universal potion that could cure any poison. Xiang Yi remembers that and gave it to Khan, who after drinking it he starts to dumping out a purple substance. When Roland sees it, he ordered all humans to be expelled from the kingdom. but Khan wakes up ordering not to do that. But Zhang Yi asked him to rest. Then one of the dwarves says that the purple substance is just like the Roland's medicine. And with that, Bartz confirms that Roland poisoned his own father. When Khan saw them fighting, he asked them to stop, since they are brothers. But Bartz tells him everything that Roland did just to become king. But Roland says that he never wanted to kill his father because it was too bothersome. Then Roland with his strength breaks free from Bartz, surprising him since the Roland he knew didn't have that strength. Roland says that now he is the king and he would bring prosperity to the kingdom. But Bartz refuses since that prosperity will only last if they sacrifice dwarves' lives. Once Khan hears all that, he ordered Roland to give back his scepter, but Roland didn't want to, since as long as he couldn't forge he could never be the king of the dwarves. He tells everyone that he pushed himself a lot to be able to forge, but everything was in vain since he hadn't that talent, which angered him since the only important thing within the dwarves' kingdom is forging, and even though he was good in other areas, it would never compensate that defect. In that moment we see a Roland's memory where everybody was congratulating him for being good in other area, but they always told him that he should help Bartz in the future, making him angry because everybody saw him as Bart's shadow. Roland shouts saying that the throne must be for him, but Bartz says that it is impossible because a king must be a forger to be able to move the kingdom and fight just like Khan did before. Knowing that he was going to say that, Roland activates the scepter, surprising everyone because everyone thought that he could forge. Bartz told him to stop since he would not be able to hold the mental energy the lunar stone consumes. But Roland says that he has made an effort that goes beyond his imagination to be able to forge. And in that moment he activates the kingdom forge and escaping the room. In that moment a guy stands up before them releasing a venom that covers the whole room. Moto managed to suck up all the venom with a Zhang Yi's invention, but Roland forges weapons inside the room and started to attack them. Martin stopped the attack by also activating the Kingdom Forge, but he couldn't stop it for long because Roland's mental power. He was growing stronger. Martin is thrown directly to the weapons, but Zhang Yi saves him by activating the forging field, surprising Roland since with that he damaged his metal power. Martin was also surprised and asked him how could he use the forging field, but Zhang Yi didn't know what he was talking about. Khan was also surprised and Zhang Yi asked them what the forging field was, but Sophists told them to explain that later since they have to get out of there first. Zhang Yi was about to forge to get them all out of there, but he asked Isabella if she was okay, but she told him that he should address her as queen, worrying Zhang Yi, who told her that she should leave that stuff for when they were alone, but Isabella ordered him to do it, surprising everyone, since their relationship was getting deeper. Once outside, Roland was bleeding because Zhang Yi's mental power was crashing against his. He also couldn't forge once outside the room. It was like an autonomous field. Zhang Yi starts to forge again, and this causes another impact in Roland's mental power, making him get angrier, so he decided to use the mental power of 400 people. He could do that because he took an forbidden drug to increase his mental power. Then Zhang Yi told him that he was just an amateur forger, making Roland go mad and attacking with robotic pieces. Zhang Yi could stop the attack by making those robotic things stop working, but he starts to feel bad. Roland gets happy because he might have used all his mental power, reaching his limit, but Zhang Yi was only felt bad because of his back since he massaged Isabella a lot. Roland was surprised and asked him if he took the forbidden drug just like him, but Zhang Yi says no, since he has a lot of talent to forge. To prove it, he created a giant robot arm with which he attacks him and says that forging goes beyond creativity and knowledge. Roland, dodging his attack, says that it doesn't surprise him, and since now he saw him as a good forger, he would show him the results from a secret investigation that took him several years. In that moment he raises his power to 600 and he forges a steam giant, surprising Zhang Yi for its nice shape. Roland starts attacking him by shooting a projectile which destroys a part of the castle, making him think that Zhang Yi was dead. But then from inside the castle, a giant robot starts to appear. When Martin sees that fight, he wonders if they should leave Zhang Yi fighting alone, but Isabella says that if Zhang Yi can't defeat a simple dwarf, then he could not serve as her servant. Roland gets angry because he thinks that Zhang Yi is just copying his steam giant. Roland was getting close to cut off his weapons, but Zhang Yi stops him with a strong magnetic coil. With that he manages to immobilize it, and Zhang Yi told him to give up obediently so he could go to his father and admit his mistakes before him. Roland yells to him saying that he shouldn't underestimate him, throwing a new attack so powerful that even Zhang Yi's robotic system warns him, saying that it was a dangerous attack. But he manages to stop him by using the useless wood shield. Zhang Yi stops moving for a while because he was figuring out a plan to end the battle fast, to prevent the other dwarves to get hurt. Roland realizes that Zhang Yi wasn't moving and thought that his attack damaged him bad, so he plans to strike him again. But Zhang Yi throws him a rocket arm with which he takes him out of the kingdom, so now he could fight outside. Roland was so angry. He tries to get free from that rocket arm, but in that moment another rocket arm comes flying, sending him to the ground. That surprised everyone. Zhang Yi forging was amazing. but the most surprised one is Sophus's, because if there are more robots like that one, they could match Angus's power. On the other hand, Roland was very injured after that strike and he was asking to himself if maybe he should escape since his secret weapon was about to be destroyed. But in that moment Xiangyi arrives and he gives him one last chance to surrender. But Roland starts to attack again. This time he uses a special meat, a very strong one from the corpses. But Xiangyi was very angry about that and he cuts that meat easily but regenerates and gets tangled into his robot. Roland said that that meat was going to regenerate forever until it kills him. Then he starts to attack Xiangyi by shooting some projectiles, but that didn't affect Xiangyi, who now uses a laser that destroys Roland's steam giant. Then he breaks free from the regenerating meat by releasing a great amount of heat to burn it. He also was worried because he thought that he might kill the prince. But Roland was alive and he was going to take him to the kingdom to get arrested. But Roland told him that it wasn't over yet because the demon tribe are going to kill them all. And after saying that, a thing comes out from the arm which envelopes Roland in until making him disappear, surprising Xiangyi because he could escape with that. Once back in the kingdom, everybody was surprised about Xiangyi's robot, and Sophus's on the other hand praises him, making Isabella jealous again. Then Khan arrives thanking him for everything he did for the kingdom and asked him if he captured Roland, but Xiangyi told him that he couldn't, since he escaped using a magic related to the corpse pillar. That made Khan sad, but Martin cheers him up and they decided to talk about how to deal with the demons. Khan told everyone that they should not be afraid of the demons anymore, because with Xiangyi, Martin and Bartz they could use the kingdom's true powers. But Isabella intervenes saying that they are idiots since they doesn't even knows the position they are in, scaring Xiangyi, who changes the subject to keep her identity hidden. They start to talk about they must finish with this war fast, because the more corpses, the more the corpse pillar grows stronger. Sophus's agreed since he fought with that pillar before and he didn't die even when cutting of his head. Xiangyi says that there are more enemies since all the corpses that weren't absorbed are now zombies, so he suggests the kingdom should raise its fire power to destroy them all. Moto says that it would be difficult since they are facing more than 100,000 enemies, but Xiangyi takes out a blueprint of some weapons that would be very useful. On the other hand, the demons were preparing for war and the corpse pillar Raymond shouts that the day has come, the day they would conquer the dwarves' kingdom. The three pillars were wondering where Balian was, but Raymond says that he was killed just like Papate. The pillars are surprised to know about Balian death. Cryans decides that he would be cautious when fighting to not end up getting killed. But Sumux was happy because he knew that he was going to rank up. Raymond asks his soldiers if they wanted to be stronger and all of them shout yes. Raymond told them that he would fulfill their wishes, so he activates an ability called Corpse's Call. And with that ability, Corpse starts to appear from the ground, and they start to attack the demons. When bitten, all the demons turn into zombies. Kyrans and Sumux complain since he also turned their soldiers into zombies. Raymond says that they must accept his decision since Lillian allowed him to make some decisions, and if they didn't agree, they could just go and fight themselves. Chians, knowing that he can't win, decides to listen. And then Raymond revives both pillars they're killed, making Kyrans angry because he absorbed them. Going back to Xiangyi, he proposed a plan which was going to a big mountain to hide the kingdom, so they should only be worried about the front. Once they arrived the mountain, they got amazed because it was huge. But Bartz was worried because that plan was dangerous. Khan told him to trust in his friends from the human kingdom. And in that moment, Xiangyi asked him to call all of his forgers in the kingdom since they wanted to make a big-scale forge to defend the mountain. On the other hand, the pillars were looking for the kingdom everywhere so they could have their war. But Kyrans say that he looked everywhere but haven't found them. Raymond asked him to keep looking since his zombie army never gets tired. Kyrians asks if anybody have seen Roland. But in that moment he appears behind them since that thing that saved him was Raymond's, which makes fun of him because he had to escape from some humans. Roland yells that if it wasn't for him they wouldn't achieve anything. But Raymond, releasing his limit power, puts an enormous pressure on him. Raymond told him not to be so arrogant since he's not a prince anymore. So Roland apologizes since he couldn't hold that pressure anymore. Once on the floor, Roland realizes that since he is not a prince anymore, he is being treated as garbage. So he decides that he will take revenge in the future. Raymond says that he has not forgotten his deal about making him the dwarf's king, but he had to be obedient, and seeing the lunar stone he asked him if he could still use it. Roland says that he ran out of his metal reserves and asks him for zombies' brains so he could recover that energy with the forbidden drug. Raymond accepts, since he wants to absorb Roland in the future so he could use the forge. On the other hand, Xiangyi was showing Isabella how the demon's army was, so she gets mad with Raymond because he turned the dead into zombies. Xiangyi told her to calm down because she could release her demon queen limit power. After noticing how fast they were going, they were supposed to find the dwarves' kingdom in about 2 hours. Then Martin arrives, who congratulates Xiangyi for everything he has done so far. And he tells him that they wouldn't be able to help him with the blueprints he gave them because they don't understand the final product. But Xiangyi told him not to worry since he has a lunar stone. Martin told him to be careful because that stone absorbs a lot of mental power, and one example of that was Moto, who forged a mini robot with the lunar stone and he almost passes out. Zhang Yi tells him that he has never felt tired when forging, making Martin remember that Zhang Yi has used the lunar stone before but he has never seen him being tired. He says that he should hold back a bit when using the stone because he might end up being bald just like Martin. Isabella imagines Zhang Yi bald and she gets a bit disgusted. But then Bartz arrives asking Zhang Yi that he couldn't understand one thing. Then we see the kingdom hidden inside the mountain and Bartz asks if they just are going to defend themselves, because now the kingdom was like a trapped beast that couldn't use its powers. Zhang Yi asked him to calm down. If an emergency presence, he had shield machines which would evacuate the kingdom very fast. Then he mentions that he trusts him because when he has to defend, he gets the most out of the forge. On the other hand, the demons were heading to the mountains to find the kingdom. They were wondering why they would hide in a place where they couldn't escape. So they start to theorize about their plan. Raymond creates a zombie and sends it to investigate the mountain, but it gets destroyed by a minigun. And besides them there were more. The dwarves, using a special stone, they create a hologram where Khan tell the demons to retire, otherwise they would have to take the path of war. The pillars start to laugh and Raymond mentioned that if they give sacrifices and honor Lillian they would have his word that nobody would be harmed. That he tells Sophices that he is a Dab Knight since Angus never sent reinforcements to the dwarves. But Sophices says that he only cares about the human kingdom and not what Angus thinks. Khan doesn't accept that deal since they had to sacrifice his people, and he finalizes saying that his people was ready to start the war. Roland intervenes saying that they should join the demons because they work with Angus, who was the true king of the humans. But Zhang Yi start to make fun of them saying that if they want to talk they should come inside, making Raymond angry. Roland tries to convince his father to surrender, but Khan firmly says that he regrets loving him. And after all that conversation the war starts. The demon starts attacking first, and Martin uses the Kingdom Forge to activate the miniguns and protect the kingdom. These weapons defeat a lot of demons, one after another, but some of them uses magic to obtain a metallic skins and the miniguns can't damage them that much. Moto says that they could not get through those metallic zombies, but Zhang Yi was expecting that, so he modifies the miniguns making them more powerful, and with a single shot, those weapons manages to kill many zombies, surprising Kyrans, who doesn't plan to attack yet since is very dangerous. Then with those weapons, a massacre starts, killing a lot of zombies, and Roland says that if they keep going like this they would never reach the dwarf's kingdom. But Raymond says that firepower fell short and the zombie Valiant stops the attack just with his body. Valiant zombie starts to destroy many powerful weapons without any difficulty, surprising Zhang Yi since the existence of that zombie was very problematic. Then the other zombie pillar called Ninja starts to fly to attack, but Martin attacks him with every weapon to prevent its attack. Ninja dodges all the attacks using magic, surprising Kyrans because despite being a zombie he could use powerful magic. Raymond told him to wait because what it comes next will surprise him even more. Then Zombie Ninja starts to use high-level fire magic. Sumux is surprised, because that fire does not go away until it completely burns the objective. And it was also beneficiary because that fire was a limited attack. Ninja starts to accumulate a lot of that fire magic, but in that moment receives an attack that killed him completely. That attack was a missile shot by Martin. But the pillars didn't get surprised since Zombie Ninja were being overconfident, and Martin on the other hand was tired since he was controlling the weapons by his own. Zhang Yi wanted to replace him, but Khan offers himself to forge since they were going to need Zhang Yi's powers. And later together with Martin they start to forge together. When they are both forging, the weapon's power gets drastically better, making most of the zombies get paralyzed. But when they were attacking Zombie Balian, they could not harm him because of his powerful body. Balian starts to attack with a weapon which I do not know its name, and with just one blow Zombie Balian gets cut in half. Raymond doesn't get scared, but he is surprised by the power of those weapons, just like Bartz, who is surprised by Zhang Yi's forging. Isabella tells them not to be so happy yet, since the pillars haven't fought yet. Then Suisuo starts to repair the bodies with her threads. Zhang Yi sees that and is planning to destroy them all so they could not be repaired. So he asked Martin and Khan to be ready for the next forge. Zombie Balian starts to attack them again, destroying a big part of the turrets, but in that moment they forged 3 frozen fortresses. Zombie Balian was going to destroy those fortresses, but they turned Zombie Balian into ice and then destroying his body completely. Then they shoot a lot of missiles to the zombies, but Sumux managed to avoid those missiles from destroying the zombies with his sticky parts. In that moment they receive a warning saying that the first defensive line has been destroyed, and Moto asks if they should be worried about that, since they destroyed one defensive line. Zhang Yi says that since they already destroyed a lot of zombies, it would be much more difficult for the demons to go through the second defensive line. Then they start to attack all the zombies with all of their weapons, making them seem like they already won the battle. But in that moment a giant corpse appeared. It was made out of 50,000 corpses. This giant carries a huge rock to throw it right into the kingdom, but it's taken down quickly by Zhang Yi's missiles. The other pillars realized that Raymond wasn't as powerful as they thought, so they didn't help him. Suisuo was Raymond's lover and she asked him what he would do now. Raymond, very confident, said that he would use his true power, and he makes the giant absorb the rest of the corpses to make him get on his feet. Now the even more powerful giant throws a powerful attack to the kingdom, but Martin and Khan tries to stop it by attacking them with the frozen fortresses, but it doesn't work since the giant is absorbing more corpses, getting stronger, and he even destroys all 3 fortresses. After that, Martin and Khan starts bleeding because of that power, surprising the pillars because they didn't know that the giant was so powerful. Inside the kingdom, Martin and Khan couldn't keep fighting because those weapons consumes a lot of energy and Zhang Yi was ready to substitute them. In that moment, Moto intervenes and he says that he now will help since he practiced a lot. But just after touching the lunar stone he could not continue. After that interruption, Zhang Yi starts to forge and fight with the demons, and when Isabella saw him acting like that, she said that now he deserves to be called a husband. Zhang Yi defeats the giant at the end with only weapons that I don't know its names. Suisuo destroys those weapons after, since they became a problem. Chiron starts helping by destroying those weapons with his insects, since he is the insect's pillar. But luck wasn't on his side because Zhang Yi had created a mobile weapon and he put it in the middle of the zombies, killing them all with its laser. Then, after using a lot of energy, the mobile weapon stops working. Raymond noticed it and he sends the zombies along with the pillars to attack. Every demon got in front of the kingdom since there were no more defensive weapons, and even more giants appear. Fei Li asks Zhang Yi why he stopped forging, but he says that his current forger has been destroyed, so he is redesigning it. Everyone inside the kingdom was worried because the demons were getting closer, and Martin asks Zhang Yi what he was doing, but he told him to wait a minute. When Sophices realizes how close the demons were, he says that they shouldn't allow them to get any closer, but Zhang Yi told them to trust him because he has a plan. When Isabella saw Zhang Yi being so confident, she told them to stop doubting, and she was starting to accept how strong he really is. The demons are getting closer and closer to the kingdom, and once Zhang Yi notices it, he uses his instant forge, starting covering all the demons with an energy sphere. The pillars reacted fast and they could escape. Once Zhang Yi had them trapped, he forged a neutron bomb and then threw it directly to the demons, and once get inside the energy sphere, detonates, creating a big explosion that even the dwarves inside the kingdom could see, surprising everyone for its enormous power. Sophices noticed that Zhang Yi had got better since he won the festival, and Penny was happy to be in Zhang Yi's side. If you don't remember, she wants to kill Angus. Zhang Yi sees that Isabella wanted to fight and he wanted to stop her, but she told him not to worry because she won't reveal her identity. On the other hand, despite not being inside the sphere, the pillars got injured and Raymond appears and starts to fight since he thinks they have no more weapons. Zhang Yi's team gets out of the kingdom to fight in the front. Raymond starts to absorb corpses left by the explosion. Everybody was ready to fight, even Zhang Yi, who had forged an armor, and this is how the fight where everyone supports each other starts. In the fight, Sophices sends flying Chirons with just one hit from his sword, and being in the air, Chirons uses his explosive flies, creating an explosion in front of Sophices, who was able to resist and then attacking him again, sending him flying again and chasing him in the air. No losing time since they wanted to deal with Chirons first. On the other hand, Sumux was throwing sticky attacks to Ali, who uses his fire to burn them, but it was useless. But then AC helps him by freezing the slime, so Ali and Nanai could fight Sumux without troubles. Isabella on the other hand wants to kill Suisuo by destroying his threads first, but Penny arrives and she gets ahead of her, cutting the threads, and when these two meet again, they start to incite each other. Zhang Yi tries to calm them so they could work together, and then Alina arrives surprisingly to help him since Sophices gave her the order. Isabella gets mad because Zhang Yi was getting popular among women, but she didn't have more time to keep talking because Suisuo had arrived to fight them. Suisuo starts attacking with his needles ability, where everybody was dodging them, but Isabella didn't want to defend, so she went straight to attack. Once in front of her, she attacks with her sword, but Suisuo creates a barrier to protect herself. She is surprised since the attack was going straight to her eyes, since her eyes were her weak spot. Isabella was surprised too because Lillian shared her limit power to each one of the pillars, making them stronger. Once getting back, her group helps by attacking Suao, but those attacks didn't work because she protected herself with her threads. Isabella gets angry with them because she wanted to kill her by her own, but Alina didn't obey and threw a rock to Suisuo, who didn't pay attention to that attack. But Alina uses her magic, increasing the size of that rock and making it land onto the pillar. In the other fight, Ali's team was frustrated because Sumux was just flying around, but Ali jumps using a fire kick to take him down, but it didn't work because his foot stuck into Sumux's body. Once Sumux had him in front, he tries to punch him, but AC managed to freeze his belly so Ali could escape. Then Nanai throws him flour so Ali with his fire could create an explosion. But it didn't work since fire doesn't affect his body. The Sumux uses his slime ability to attack the whole team. Everybody managed to protect themselves using their abilities, but Sumux surprised AC on her back, capturing her. Ali wanted a fair fight, so he started calling him a coward. Sumux told him the same since they were 3 and he was alone. He also says they should care about themselves rather worrying about others. Ali was distracted and some slimes started to stick to him and he couldn't escape. Those slimes also had trapped Nanai and they were reaching the top of his head, not letting him breathe. AC was immobilized too and she asked him what he was going to do with them. Sumux told her that he wanted to hit them hard against that wall. AC starts to freak out and tries to escape, but in that moment Nanai's attacks hit Sumux, sending him flying. AC asked him how he managed to escape the slimes. He says that he used flour since he got a bit on his hand after using it before. When he was unable to breathe, he realized that he could use his right arm with the flour to get rid of the slime. In that moment he remembered a cooking class where they used flour to dissolve sticky things, so everybody decided to use that method to finish with Sumux. On the other hand, on the top of the mountain, Sophices and Chirons were having an epic fight. Chirons throws a horde of explosive insects to get him out of the fight, but Sophices manages to destroy them by using a segregated sword strike. Chirons throws 10 billions of explosive insects surrounding Sophices, but they couldn't get near enough because the segregated sword strike prevented them to get close. The Sophices uses an ability with his sword that pumps the air, making all the insects explode, making Chirons angry. In that moment, when trying to give an order to his insects, Chirons couldn't speak. Sophices was planning to use a powerful ability that once he uses it he must rest for at least 1 month. Sophices focuses to activate his ability, Empty World, which makes the insects die since they have no air. Chirons start to throw attacks despite not having air, but these attacks bounces when hitting the air-pressured shield. Sophices says that it is impossible for him to defeat him since he can control the air. And the last time he used the Empty World ability was when the human tribe was in war with the demon tribe. In that fight, Sophices killed 3 pillars and a 4th managed to escape, but he was injured badly. Chirons was mad and used his Insect King form and start to tell Sophices that he shouldn't compare him with other pillars since he is the strongest. Chirons was able to talk because being an insect, he released chemical gases which enables the sound inside the empty world. But Sophices couldn't help less because with his speed he cut Chirons in half. On the other hand, Isabella was still attacking Suao, and even when she is destroying her threads, she can't get near to her. Suasua was surprised and asked her what her sword was made from. And meanwhile, when distracted, Penny transformed her sword and went through her body, but it didn't affect her since her body was made of threads. Suasua was surprised by Penny's sword since it was made from the Beast King's bones. Isabella told Penny to stay back since she doesn't know her weakness, but Xiang Yi tries to convince her to work together so they could defeat her faster. Isabella told him not to forget that she was her queen now, so out of nothing she orders him to take out the mask and Xiang Yi obeying. He didn't think that Isabella was going to kiss him, and then she told him not to worry because she could handle it herself. After that kiss, Xiang Yi trusts that she is going to win that battle, so he decides to go and fight with Raymond, who with his magic he creates a coffin that starts to absorb corpses. Roland was worried, and to distract him he told Xiang Yi to leave so he wouldn't die, and if he does he would give him a lunar stone when he becomes king. Xiang Yi doesn't obey and shoots some missiles that makes Roland protect. But those missiles weren't aiming to Roland but to the coffin, but it didn't even scratch it. When Xiang Yi notices that shield, he uses his light sword, and once he attacks again, he destroys it a bit and realizes that those magic shields are weak against lasers. Xiang Yi plans to attack again to destroy the shield, but in a moment of distraction, a giant demon eats him in 1 bit. Xiang Yi saved him by cutting it in half with a blood saw, but the demons regenerate since he was made of the corpse's tentacles. Roland decides to flee since he doesn't consider Raymond one of his own. But in that moment his arm starts to absorb him, and Raymond says that he was just raw material for his evolution. Before he is absorbed completely, Roland injects something in his leg, and once he fell, the tentacles started to absorb him. In other fight, Sumux was losing because Nanai was hitting him with his hand full of flour. Sumux, unable to do anything, was waiting the flour to run out. Ali gets close and starts hitting him with his fire punch, and he lastly uses a ray strike. He manages to separate Sumux in little pieces of slime. Nanai makes a giant dough so the pieces could not regenerate. AC was doing the same, but her power was about to run out. Even so, Sumux could go back to his form, since while a single drop of him remains, he can regenerate his body completely. Nanai decides to fight alongside Ali and activates an ability that we don't know the name. Sumux sees those tattoos and asks if that is the human tribe's definitive power. Nanai uses his cooking magic without answering, creating a giant pan, and asks Ali to make a giant fire. Once ready, he creates some cookware and he starts cooking him, making some moves and turning the heat into pressure. Then, Sumux starts to expand the pan, making it explode, hurting Ali and Nanai. who now realizing that they are no match for Sumux, tells Ace to escape and look for Xiangyi for help. But Sumux starts to attack her so she couldn't escape. Ace was protecting herself with the little energy she had left. Sumux, just like any other miserable being, wanted to desecrate her in front of her friends, but Ali got up to keep fighting, and when realizing that they couldn't do anything else, Ace asked him to escape and look for help. But Ali told her that in that moment he found a way to defeat him, and remembers that despite he mastered the ancient martial arts, he had some questions. Mike proposed a duel since that was the only way to answer his questions. Having improved, Ali starts by throwing 3 attacks from 3 different elements. Mike, using 2 elements, neutralizes Ali's 2 elements, leaving the thunder element. Mike destroys it using an ancient boxing punch. Then he counterattacks using an ancient fire boxing, which Ali tries to stop it by using a water element fist. But he couldn't because of the incredible power of that ancient fire fist. Once beaten, Ali thinks that he has to keep practicing. But for now, Mike tells him that in that moment, flexibility is more important. Ali understood that he must adapt, so Ace realizes that when adapting, Ali can use ice by using an ice boxing technique. But at the end he wasn't going to do it since his plan was to raise his fire temperature until he finally can beat him. So he manages to create some platinum flames in his fists. Sumux starts to make fun of him since fire couldn't affect him, but Ali sends him flying with 1 punch. Nainai was surprised because he didn't need flour to give him a direct hit, and he could do that by increasing the temperature of his fire, because he realized that he is not totally immune to fire. Then Sumux gets up so angry that he starts attacking them, and while protecting them, Ali told Nainai to escape with Ace. Ali manages to dodge Sumux's attacks, and once facing him he starts to punch him repeatedly with his platinum fists, hurting him a lot. Sumux now starts to worry because with those punches he lost half of his body, so he starts to attack him seriously. But by stopping his attacks, Ali manages to create an opening to use his ability, shattering one of Sumux's arms. For the first time, Sumux starts to feel pain in his body, and Ali was going to keep shattering him so he couldn't regenerate. Sumux told him that he wouldn't hold until that happened, but Ali, already knowing that, starts to focus to use his last fire ability, with which he wants to evaporate Sumux until he is dead. Sumux was angry, so he got bigger to start attacking Ali, but none of his attacks reached him because they got evaporated by Ali's fists. Sumux was astonished for what was happening, and when he was distracted, Ali gets in front of him and using everything he has got, he hits him and creates a big wave of heat. After the explosion, Ace and Nani gets surprised because Sumux's pieces didn't appear to have any power, making Ali the winner. Ali ran out of power and he falls into a coma, and when watching his arm they decide to take him to Master Fiona to heal him. But in that moment Sumux attacks them on their backs with a little Ryumanis of his body. Ace manages to stop him using ice, getting her unable to keep going, so they decide to go and look for help. In the other fight, Isabella and Penny were fighting, and by working together they were reaching the Suisuo's weak point. Penny was helping since she wanted to if the orcs were living in the demon's tribe, but Isabella didn't answer. But since she was helping anyway, she was considering answering her. Suisuo was angry for losing time with them, so she was going to fight for real. But when seeing Alina, she gets big and kicks her, harming her bed. When Isabella sees that she was unprotected, she attacked her, but it didn't work. Her body was made of threads and she could repair. Then Penny appears on her back to cut her head, but Alina kicks her, throwing her into the floor, and also starts attacking Isabella. Alina didn't betray them since she was getting controlled by Suisuo's threads, who managed to do it because when Alina kicked her, she implanted her thread into her. Alina starts to throw so many hits, but they manages to avoid them, and Penny starts to crawl her arm to attack and destroy the threads. But those attacks didn't work because they were injuring Alina, and Suisuo starts to make fun of them for not being capable to kill her friend. Then Isabella starts to attack her from behind, but Suisuo stops her and creates a threads field, capturing Isabella inside. But instead of being worried, Suisuo was disappointed because despite having a bit of the Demon Queen powers, she wasn't as strong as she thought. That's because Isabella, with just one movement of her sword, she managed to cut her threads, and Suisuo is surprised because she knows about that. So in order to kill her, she grabs her body with her strings. Isabella wasn't worried about that, and Suisuo thought she was pretending, so she starts to tighten her threads. But Isabella still showed no fear, and she used her Demon Queen limit power to cut the threads, which surprised Suisuo because she didn't have anything to destroy her threads. She starts to fear Isabella and starts wondering why is there a human so strong. But in that moment, Isabella uses her speed and destroys Suisuo's eyes. That allowed Alina to be controlled no more. but by having used her magic for so long she couldn't keep anymore. And Susuo on the other hand was suffering because of her eyes. Isabella while getting closer told her that she has the same face she had when she betrayed her. And Susuo when she finally could see her well, she realized that she was the demon queen. Isabella scolds her because of her treason because she saved her when she was a slave, and Susuo thanks her for saving her. Yet, she says that she have found something more important in her life and she starts attacking again. When Isabella sees her true face she called her ugly. Susuo accepts the fact that she is ugly, but since Raymond is the only one who loves her, she is going to leave all behind for him. Isabella told her that she wasn't ugly because of her looks but her character, because she is very easy to be fooled. But Susuo says that Raymond's love for her is real. But in that moment she loses contact with Raymond. She thinks that he is in danger, so she goes to help him. Isabella tries to stop her but she couldn't. Zhang Yi on the other hand sees how Sumux is being defeated by his friends and he prepares his light sword again to cut Raymond's coffin, but Susuo puts her body in front to protect the coffin and sends Zhang Yi flying with a hit, who landed with Isabella, who wasn't worried about Susuo anymore because her regenerative power had reached its limits. Isabella throws a powerful attack since she was not going to be merciful with a traitor. But Susuo, besides not being able to regenerate anymore, she kept protecting Raymond. The other also attacks Susuo, leaving her in a very bad shape, and Isabella tells her to leave him since she was just an expendable pawn for him. Susuo tells her that she already knows but she was going to protect him anyway. In that moment Sophices appears, who also attacks Susuo. Zhang Yi was about to finish her but the coffin starts to open and a very powerful Raymond gets out from it, getting Susuo happy. Raymond grabs her but instead of helping her, he kills her to then absorb her. Once he absorbed her completely he got stronger and now he can fly. After that, everyone start to attack him but no attack could harm him since he stopped them all. Raymond gets behind Sophices and sends him flying with one strike. Raymond was so confident with his new powers that he said not even Lillian could stop him now. Zhang Yi catches him within his energy sphere. He was happy because now that he is trapped, all would end. But Raymond managed to escape since he noticed that he should not lower his guard against Zhang Yi, and since he knows that he is a forger he wants to know if he has limit power. He starts to release a big amount of limit power which makes Zhang Yi's heart not able to hold it, and Raymond realized now that indeed he didn't have any limit power. He wants to kill him anyway because he still was strong. Penny managed to tie him with her sword, saving Zhang Yi, and Isabella, angry because he wanted to kill Zhang Yi, starts to attack him, and we can see that Zhang Yi could hold Raymond's limit power pressure because Isabella gave him a bit of limit power when she kissed him. While Raymond was getting free he says that they would never be able to defeat him because he is invincible, and Penny was in shock because she used a very strong tie but that was nothing for him. Raymond using his weapon catches Penny to absorb her but she modifies her weapon to be a rapier. Raymond uses Susuo's thread's abilities to absorb her but Penny gives a blood drink to his sword to grow stronger and to attack him. She starts to get crazy just like the time when she fought Isabella but it didn't work, and he catches her and says that he would use her to threat the regent since she is Angus's daughter. Penny was very angry and got free, so she used her beast form and started to attack Raymond. But like I already told you, Raymond is very strong. But worried about Penny growing any stronger he sent her flying with a kick, leaving her out of combat, and then he gets near to Zhang Yi to kill him because he got in his way. Now Raymond gets out the scepter and started to forge, surprising everyone in the kingdom, and Khan sadly realizes that he absorbed Roland. Raymond realizes that the forge is very powerful and tells Zhang Yi that if he teaches him to forge, he would spare his life, but it was just a joke since he starts attacking him. To protect himself, Zhang Yi gets his brush out and creates a light tower which shoots a laser, destroying Raymond's forge. Raymond gets surprised by that power because when he was forging he felt that he lost a lot of corpses, so he decided not to forge anymore since it was useless for him. Zhang Yi says that forging is not as easy as he thought, but Raymond told him that forging wasn't important for him. Zhang Yi tells Isabella not to fight to keep her identity hidden since now everyone in the kingdom could see her fighting. Also Captain Sophices was fighting with them. Isabella understands but tells him to be careful since Raymond was getting serious. In that moment Raymond uses high-level magic, creating ice above them, which starts to fall at a high speed, destroying everything. Zhang Yi protects himself with his useless wood shield, but the impact was so powerful that managed to break his arm, worrying Zhang Yi since the useless wood shield wouldn't be useful for him. When Isabella sees that she was planning to fight even if her identity would be revealed, and although she only had a 20% of her original power, it would work to punish Raymond. Raymond praises him to hold his attack, but then Sophices appear and traps him with his air prison magic. He apologizes with Zhang Yi for leaving him alone with a very powerful enemy, and knowing that his empty field was on its limits he decides to throw an attack that would determine who wins and who loses. That attack was harming him a lot. but Raymond managed to protect himself by activating one of his abilities, surprising Sophices since he shouldn't be able to do that. Raymond uses a magic called damage transfer, which function is that the more damages he receives, the more his immunity gets after. In that moment, Xiangyi realizes that Raymond had absorbed corpses that died in a nuclear explosion, so he asks Isabella to lengthen the fight, since Raymond was infected with nuclear radiation. But since he didn't know when it would affect him, he was planning to throw another bomb at his body. Raymond, on the other hand, is surprised about the fact that he ended up with those injures. But since he had a million corpses, he evolves, starting to fight more serious. Sophices throws some attacks, but Raymond ended up dodging them and being bigger now. He starts stomping him, making fun of him for not being able to kill him, and in that moment he activates an ice ability to attack him. But Xiangyi managed to save him by forging a Rupert's Drop. Sophices, worried, asked him to go. Rupert's Drop could not hold for longer and ended up being destroyed by such power. But Xiangyi managed to save Sophices by dodging the attack. Xiangyi asked Sophices to let him fight Raymond so Isabella could fight freely, but he changes the subject, thanking him for saving him. He was more and more convinced that he was his lost brother Sophisac. Raymond saw them distracted and he was going to attack them, so he uses the Pillar Ninja's magic. Isabella intervenes, attacking with her sword ability, but using Pillar Ninja's abilities he ended up avoiding all attacks. Raymond notices that Xiangyi was very important for them, so he launches a powerful kick, but Xiangyi protects himself, forging an air mattress. Even with that he couldn't do anything else, so Xiangyi gets hurt. Sophices was worried, so he used a fencing ability and managed to save him so he wouldn't get hurt badly with the fall. Xiangyi ended up very bad hurt, waking up Sophices and Isabella's wrath, who were going to kill Raymond at all costs. When Raymond saw them in that estate, he starts to laugh, but suddenly Sophia's with his great velocity ended up hurting him, so Raymond decides to kill him first to end with all that. Isabella also starts to attack him, but Raymond doesn't consider her a worthy opponent. But using more power she ended up leaving him with a big injure. When Raymond sees that, he wonders if Isabella had more limit power than him, but he decides to heal himself first with the regeneration ability. Sophices was not going to let him, so he uses an ability to attack again. But Raymond managed to avoid it, the Pillar Ninja's ability. Sophices and Isabella started working together to kill Raymond, who, noticing the tremendous limit power Isabella has, he asked her who she was, but she says that she haven't given permission to talk. Sophices start to protect Isabella so she could attack without trouble, and with her sword he starts to damage Raymond even more. Raymond was wondering why a woman was beating his powers, and remembering the fact that he had to go through a lot of humiliations to get where he is now, he wasn't going to lose. While being fighting with Raymond, both of them had forgot about Xiangyi, so Raymond took advantage of that and created a corpse to kill him while unconscious. The corpse created a weapon and it was going to kill Xiangyi, but Sophices managed to save him using his body as shield, leaving him with a hole on his body. Raymond starts to laugh. Then he teleported and took out the weapon from Sophia's body, killing him. Xiangyi, once awake, wanted to help him, but he was in terrible pain, so he uses an emergency medicine, but it would take some time to work. Raymond saw him in that estate and he attacks to kill, but in that moment an ability sends flying Raymond and even destroys the mini helicopter that was transmitting the fight. So inside the kingdom they were now wondering what was happening. When Raymond realized who threw that, he starts to get scared. It was Isabella, who had awoken her demon queen limit power. Raymond couldn't believe that he was before the former queen and she was going to kill him because he had hurt her subordinates. Xiangyi asked her if she could hold that form, but Isabella told him that she only wanted to kill him and ordered him to help Sophices. Xiangyi takes a bit of that medicine Hong Lion gave him, but he was wondering if that would work since the injury was pretty bad. Once he poured it into Sophices' body, the hole on his body ended up closing. In the fight, Raymond was backing up because of Isabella's power, but he decides to fight since his only queen now was Lillian. Raymond tells her that her strength is not like before, but Isabella with just one move of her finger cuts his head off. Raymond creates a corpse's mountain to attack Isabella, but with just one look she makes them disappear. While Raymond was regenerating himself, he tells Isabella that she is not as strong as before, because if she wanted to kill him she would have done it already. But in that moment Isabella gets behind him and goes through his body, taking one of his demon powers. Once in the floor, Isabella stomps the head till destroying the demon power, recovering a bit of his demon queen powers that were taken from her. In the inner world of the corpse pillar, Raymond was scared because even though Isabella didn't have her whole strength, she was very strong. Since Isabella broke Balian demon power, he wouldn't be able to use it anymore. Isabella, knowing that he is pretending to be dead, she was going to take him out from his inner world. And to do that she starts to use demon electrocution magic, which was starting to damage Raymond in his inner world. Raymond creates a corpse and starts to throw some attacks, but none of them manage to damage Isabella, and she says that she would make him feel absolute pain before killing him. Using an ability, she takes out from him Pillar Ninja's demon power, so he decides to escape to inform Lillian about the situation. Raymond starts to come back to his original form after losing the demon's powers, and since he only had Suosuo's powers left, he transforms into an animal to escape flying. Zhang Yi manages to reach by hitting him with his armor since he doesn't want Isabella's identity to be revealed. But since the hit wasn't strong enough, Raymond starts attacking him. Zhang Yi manages to get free from those attacks by using his lasers, so he starts to chase him again. Zhang Yi knows that he lost some abilities, so he was convinced that he was going to catch him. But Raymond manages to avoid him, and since he wasn't afraid of him, he uses his abilities to absorb him, surprising Zhang Yi because despite losing powers he was still strong to be able to escape. Zhang Yi forges various giant objects, but Raymond was mocking him since he had anything else to offer. In that moment, when distracted, Zhang Yi gets behind him and kicks him down to the floor and starts bombarding him non-stop. Raymond creates some corpses which starts to attack Zhang Yi, so he starts cutting each one of them, but they regenerated. The corpses were pursuing him and eventually they caught him. He was worried about getting absorbed, so he releases some parts of his armor, and since it was now incomplete, it would be very difficult to fight. But he decides to fight for Isabella, no matter what. Raymond now had a new plan and told him that he would capture him to use him as a token of exchange with Isabella. Then Raymond starts to feel a terrible and violent pain. When Zhang Yi sees him like that, he got happy because the effects of radiation were starting to appear. Raymond, very angry, asks him how did he poison him. Zhang Yi didn't want to tell the long story, so he told him that since the moment he absorbed the corpses from the explosion, he was already doomed. Raymond starts attacking him with his arm, but it also starts to fail, and Zhang Yi starts mocking him because he can't catch him. Raymond, angry, creates some dog corpses to attack them, but they were also affected by radiation. He entered in his inner world and all of his corpses were disappearing. Raymond looks for a solution to stop that since his body wouldn't be able to hold, so he thinks about looking for a container to store those corpses. Zhang Yi wasn't going to let that happen, so he starts bombarding him for 15 minutes straight, and his body was reaching his limit. Raymond could protect himself with his arms, but the effects of radiation were finishing with his body, and Zhang Yi was happy. But in that moment something started to get out from Raymond's body. That thing was Suosuo, who ends up being melted, and Raymond starts attacking him because as long as he was alive he could keep fighting. Zhang Yi was worried because it seemed like Raymond was getting used to the effects of radiation. But in that moment Isabella arrives, sending Raymond flying with a kick. Isabella says that he should not disobey her orders since she told him not to fight. But Zhang Yi was happy because she came to help. Isabella says that even though he was her faithful follower, he will be punished later, but as long as he was obedient she would consider giving him a gift in the night. On the other hand, Raymond starts to remember that life was unfair to him since he was a slave while other demons were the leaders, but since his quality was the patience. Then one day they gave him the power of Corpse Pillar since that power disgusted the royal family, so he ascended very quickly. Raymond proposed to himself to gain power and fame to become the next demon king, but all that had disappeared in a day, so that's why he used a new plan. Raymond gets something out of his body which opens his mouth using an absorbing power at 100%. Both knew that the last attack they would use would be the ones to decide who gets the victory. Isabella didn't want Zhang Yi to be harmed by the attack, so she was going to send him to a safe zone. Zhang Yi refuses since he wants to fight with her and he doesn't want to leave her alone, and once Isabella accepts, she decides that they will work together. Raymond wanted more power, so he raises his absorption power, and Isabella wouldn't use her limit power completely because Zhang Yi wouldn't hold it. In that moment she feels that the absorption power rose a lot, absorbing everything, so she uses her demon claws and starts to touch the floor to not get sucked in. In that moment Isabella lets Zhang Yi go, and being focused he starts to use all his brain and he could enter the forge field Martin and Khan mentioned before. There with the stopped he could forge everything easily. Zhang Yi was thinking about what to forge since his weapons could be sucked in before they even start working. But he remembered a weapon in one of his blueprints, though it was in an experimental phase. If he used it, it could kill Raymond instantaneously, but if it gets out of control it could kill him as well. But he wants to do it because he is planning on controlling it. When focused, a little stain gets out from his brush, and it's nothing less than a black hole once in the real time. Isabella managed to catch him before being sucked in. Then the black hole, after eating Raymond, starts to swallow everything around it. The black hole starts to expand, and even Isabella with her wings couldn't escape, and Zhang Yi tries to stop it by creating energy spheres around it. But they were sucked in effortlessly by the black hole. To stop it, Isabella leaves Zhang Yi alone so she could use her real demon form. Even though she didn't have all of her powers, she throws her most powerful attack to stop it. But even yet the black hole kept expanding and growing stronger. Isabella pushes herself a lot and manages to destroy the black hole. And seeing that power, she recognizes Zhang Yi as the hero who would save the demons. Since Isabella emptied all of her demon power, she ended up passing out, and naked after her demon form disappeared. Zhang Yi forges a bed for her to rest, and when he wanted to cover her he couldn't because he ended up looking at her body. Then he realized that she was awaking, and when she realized that he saw her, she asked him if he liked her, but Zhang Yi turned around and said that he was worried. But Isabella gets up and suggests to wait until they recovers. She told him to turn around. Zhang Yi obeys and do it with his eyes closed, so Isabella orders him to open them. When he sees her, he confesses that indeed he was her body before. Isabella wasn't angry but complains to him about turning an easy-to-handle situation into something dangerous with that black hole. Even yet, she congratulates him for having so much power, and she is thinking about making him her real husband. But he shouldn't disobey her orders anymore, because if he would, she was going to do unthinkable things with his ass. So Zhang Yi nods his head and scared. He promises never to disobey her again. By night they went back to the dwarves' kingdom where everyone were worried for Sophus because even Fiona was having a hard time to heal him. Fiona uses superior healing magic and mentions that even with that medicine Zhang Yi gave to him to heal his wound, she can't heal him with any spell since Sophus seemed to be a container with no soul. Even when her magic had a temporal effect, he would not hold one more night. Zhang Yi says that there was a way to save him. Everyone gets surprised, so they all wanted to help. But Zhang Yi asked everyone but Isabella to leave the room, and what they were going to do, it should be kept between them. Once alone, Zhang Yi had planned to use the red stones from their rings to save Sophus. Isabella wanted to help because it was about a loved person. After touching the rings, some magic circles starts to repair Sophus' soul. In that moment Isabella felt a familiar feel. After finished, Sophus' body starts to move, getting Zhang Yi happy, who goes straight to him. Isabella gets a bit angry because he let go of her hand. Sophus wakes up scared, so I'm not sure if he already know the truth about his world, because when he sees Zhang Yi he promised him that he will protect him. When Isabella saw them hugging she got in bad mood, but the other came in very happy to see Sophus alive. Fiona, after diagnosing him, she got surprised because he recovered completely just in a few minutes, and Zhang Yi, to mislead them, says that it is a business secret, because Basil told him that it was forbidden to create life, so even if he tries to read the other's mind, it would be very difficult for him to find out. Penny notices Zhang Yi's red stone. Since the day was exhausting, everyone went to sleep. When Isabella arrives to the room, she ordered Zhang Yi to forge appropriate clothes to sleep. Zhang Yi was getting ready to sleep on the floor, but Isabella ordered him to sleep with her in the bed. So Zhang Yi lies down nervously meters away from her, but she ordered him to scratch her back, making him even more nervous when she asked him to do it under her clothes. Zhang couldn't resist, but then Isabella gets on top of him since she is planning to give him the gift she promised. That gift was a kiss, and then we see the Demon Queen personality telling Isabella that they were giving him a 1% of her demon power. So from now on he would not suffer the pressure of others' limit power anymore, and from now on they would never see each other since she recovered a part of her original power, so they would be one person again. The personality asked her to thank him since she made real progress with Zhang Yi, but Isabella says that she did well. And before she goes, the personality said that even when they are different, they both like Zhang Yi. And just like that, after the kiss, the real Isabella takes control over her body, and with a serious face she told him to go to sleep, leaving Zhang Yi puzzled. But then she blushes because she was starting to accept her feelings. The next day, all the dwarves from the kingdom were thanking Zhang Yi's team, and even the ones from the royalty vowed, as gratitude gesture for saving them. The dwarves forged a statue of them where there was also Feli with her cat, even when didn't do anything in the war. Khan asked them to stay on more day to celebrate the thermal waters party. Zhang Yi was going to stay to relax while the other wanted to see the other women naked. After a while, Martin and Khan decided to take Zhang Yi to a forging lab where Khan along Bart's used to make some experiments with the forge. Martin told him that from now on they wouldn't be able to see each other so often anymore, since Angus could take a role in this matter of saving the dwarves, so Martin could be held as responsible of everything. So Matron decides to stay in the dwarves' kingdom since Angus could take advantage of that situation to push Sophus. When Martin remembers that Zhang Yi can use the forging field, he asked him to have a real forging battle at a highest level, surprising Zhang Yi. Martin says that in that battle he wants to teach him the last secret of the forging field. And once in the lab, Martin told him to not hold up, even if he was his teacher. Zhang Yi told him to calm, but Martin forged some crossbows and attacked him merciless, and then shouting him to take this fight seriously. Then he starts to attack with the crossbows, but Zhang Yi could defend himself with his energy sphere. Martin decided that Khan would fight as well so Zhang Yi could fight for real. So together they use the forging field and the energy sphere starts to disappear. Zhang Yi wondered why since he didn't cancel the forge, and then he realizes that Martin's and Khan's forging field were manipulating his at their will. Martin tells him that he can use the forging field but only if he activates it together with Khan. Also, they had to use gems to be able to focus the mental power, but Zhang Yi was different since he was never seen tired while forging. His mental power were tireless and he learned the forging filed by himself. Zhang Yi was a genius since he dominated all this easily, so he could forge with no limits, without using a brush or alignment stone. They are Zhang Yi to use the forge field. But Zhang Yi didn't remember what he felt when he activated it. Martin, knowing that in a calm situation he could not activate it, he starts to attack him, but he protects himself with his useless wood shield. Both of them makes that shield disappear, starting to attack him again, and Martin shouts him to remember what he felt when he activated it. So Zhang Yi concentrates to remember what he felt. Then he realizes that every time he activated the forge was because he wanted to be stronger to help Isabella. With all that remembered, Zhang Yi activates his forging field, and with just one hand he could vanish Khan's and Martin's forge. Once he realized how strong he was, he said that it was like having the power of God. Both of them couldn't keep fighting, so they told him that they made him learn the forging field so he could activate it not just when in danger. They also told him that he is the only one who can forge with useless wood so easily. Even them can only forge with useless wood only in the forging field. They both lost their hair by forging a piece of useless wood, and even Martin missed his handsomeness. Zhang Yi wanted to help them by forging some seats, but he was surprised because he couldn't do it. Khan told him that first he must consolidate everything he learned. Since they trust in Zhang Yi, they know they will do it, making them happy. And now that the relation between tribes were in tension, it would be very difficult for them to see each other. Zhang Yi thanks them for they taught him and did for him. Isabella tells that despite she forbade the cruelty against humans, they would still lived under a cruel tyranny since they were treated like animal in the demon tribe. Sophices had spent his whole life searching for his brother, but he would only find one disappointment after the other, because he never found him. However, when he found Zhang Yi, little ray of hope appeared, because the resemblance was overwhelming, getting Sophices happy because the relative he loved so much had appeared. When Zhang Yi hears all that, he thinks about becoming Sophices' brother, and even if Sophisac gets back one day, he would still treat him like a brother. The next day, Moto decides to stay in the dwarves' kingdom to learn more about the forge, and Martin was feeling sad because the king might blame him for everything. But they all decided to take that guilt. They say goodbye to him and went back to the kingdom. On the other hand, Roland managed to survive by having Raymond's blood in his body, with which he makes a ritual to call a dimensional door to the demons. But when getting closer, one demon gets out to attack him. That demon was the door pillar, who was the guardian of that dimensional door. And since he was no demon, he wouldn't let him get through, so he said that he was sent by Raymond. But he couldn't come because he was murdered by Zhang Yi. However, the pillar starts to attack him, but now because he wanted to take Raymond's blood out of him. But in that moment, Lillian ordered the demon to let him through, since they had a deal. Once Tiro, Roland already knew Libri, the magic pillar, Biowit, the disgrace pillar, and Matoso, the sword pillar. Once Lillian KWNE about Raymond's death, she asked Roland who did it. Roland told her it was Zhang Yi and one girl with a demon aura called Isabella. When they hear that name, they start looking into Roland's memories and ended up confirming that it was about the former demon queen Isabella. So Lillian gets happy because she was as beautiful as always. She turns Roland into a pillar for showed her those memories, and she thinks about giving him demon powers. So in that moment, some demons start to appear from her hands and they go in through Roland's mouth. Once all those demons are inside his body, Roland starts to feel a tremendous power. So he was so happy that he wanted to become Lillian's right hand, who ordered him to send soldiers to the borders of the human kingdom because she wanted to say hello to Isabella as soon as possible, and she wants Zhang Yi to be captured to thank him for protecting her queen. On the other hand, Zhang Yi's group arrives to the human kingdom and they were happy, so they wanted to celebrate. But Penny decides to go since she doesn't want her to be seen with them. But then they start to worry since the whole place was in total silence. Then some knights appear and they were going to arrest them by order of the king since they are considered traitors. They decide to go without resistance. So once in the palace, the king seemed worried and he was going to talk. But then Yalu interrupts, insulting Sophices. But Sophices, without paying attention, explains that he tried to help the dwarves because if the demon tribe would have took them in, they would have become much more powerful, making them a true threat in the near future. The king was about to accept his allegation, but Angus, very angry, tells Sophices that only he has the right to work with foreign relations in the human kingdom. When Sophices realizes that their friends might end up in jail, he starts to say that he was the one who convinced them to go to the dwarves' kingdom, so they only got him in jail. But all of them decided to take guilt. However, in that moment all of the teachers from the academy arrives and they say they are all guilty as well because they convinced their students to go and help the dwarves' kingdom, so they should be in jail too. When Angus saw that all the teachers were protecting their students, he wasn't planning to punish them after all, but relegates Sophices from his rank as captain. Sophices didn't even care, so he does not object. However, Angus wanted to close Zhang Yi's business guild, because he doesn't want some foreigner to control commerce, since he knows he is being manipulated for someone from the demon tribe. Zhang worries because it seems that Angus knows the truth about Isabella. Zhang makes everything possible to change the subject, but Angus wasn't playing around and he tells everyone that Isabella is the former queen of the demon tribe, surprising everyone there. But at the same time nobody believed it. But at the same time they started to remember that sometimes Isabella showed an aura similar to the demon's one, just like that time when she lost control in her training. So they confirmed that Isabella was indeed the former demon queen. So every dragon knight starts to surround her to capture her. Zhang Yi wonders how did they find out, and Sophists, very shocked, asked Zhang Yi if that was true, and he said yes, once knowing that it was impossible to keep hiding it. Isabella decides to start fighting with her demon form, depressing everyone because they feel betrayed. Isabella didn't want to fight her friend, so she says that her only target was Angus, and Sophists grabbed his sword and got in front of Zhang Yi, who protects himself from being attacked. But Sophists doesn't attack him. He was just protecting him and telling everyone that if they touched him he would kill them. Sato ordered the White Dragon Knights to attack, but Sophists knocked them all out with one of his abilities, so the rest were planning to attack. However, some teachers started to help Isabella escape, so Isabella listened to them and she escapes. But Sato starts chasing them. Illy and Emery also followed her, but to help her, and the others remembered that she wasn't bad, so they wanted to help too. But AC stops them because if they keep helping Sophists she would have to bear the responsibility. However, she was helping them a bit. On their way, Isabella tells that she wants to go back to the demon tribe and take her throne back. She also apologizes with Sophists because of her he had to betray his kingdom. Sophists told her not to worry since they were family for him. But in that moment some chains catches Isabella and Zhang Yi, and then they get pulled. It was Sato who did that to provoke Sophists to fight with him. But then Ali appears, who knocks him with one of his abilities. Then some knights appear, but Nanai defeats them. Mumu tells Zhang Yi that all of his responsibilities were now in the hand of the regent and his workers were cancelled. Zhang Yi feels guilty, but Mumu cheers him up, saying that Angus would do it eventually, since a lot of knights were behind them. Nanai and his master stayed to distract them, and once they were in the exit, Sophists thought about staying in the kingdom because he promised his adoptive father to protect the little king. And since both of them had someone to take care of, Zhang Yi accepts his decision so he could keep taking care of Isabella. Alina was going to stay with Sophists, but after a kiss, he convinced her to leave with them. Then Sato arrives with his sword for his long-awaited fight. Sophists prepares to fight, but in that moment Zhang Yi calls him big brother and promises him to go back to have a new life, and he says goodbye. Sophists was very happy about that. Then he decides to give up since his objective was a success, making Sato angry because he wanted to fight him. On the other hand, Zhang Yi and his group wasn't having a good time because they got across with some demons and two pillars who wasn't going to let them see Lillian. Everybody was surprised about Libri and Isabella resemblance, but she explained that Lillian could give her a part of the powers she stole from her, making them look like sisters. After that, the demon starts to attack the ship. Zhang Yi was very upset, so he throws a lot of missiles to them. However, Biowit managed to protect the demons with a barrier, so Zhang Yi, a bit scared, uses the maximum speed of his ship to escape. Then after thinking that they had escaped, they think about going to the demon tribe, but then Libri appears with her real demon form. Isabella worries and wonders how she could use that form since only the royalty should be able to use it. But in that moment Libri throws a powerful attack to them. However, a magic circle saves them, teleporting them to Zhang Yi's ship. The one who saved them was Vasily, who asked them what was their plan. Isabella tells that Pilar d'Aculo is waiting for her in the demon tribe, so she wants to go since she thinks he is still on her side. Isabella asks Vasily for his help, who plans to help them a bit by sending them to the demon tribe. But the problem is that there was a magic in that kingdom that could detect people from outside. To be able to help them with that, he gives them 2 forbidden books where they could learn a magic that would change their looks, one to Emery and the other to Isabella. Before they go, Vasily gives both men a special magic so they could use it in a key moment. And with that, everybody got across a door which sends them directly into the demon tribe. They managed to get in by disguising as demons, but then they got surprised because it was all very pacific. Then Zhang Yi sees how some demon kids were enslaved, since Lillian reactivated slavery in the demon tribe. Lily takes them to get them out of there, but on their way the kids themselves hurt him and they escape to get back to their master, because slaves could be tracked without problem with a collar. But in that moment some demons appear to capture them for what they did. But while escaping, some magic captures them. It was Darkulo, who takes the others out, but Zhang Yi, so they couldn't hear what he had to say to Isabella. Darkulo explains that he is taking no sides, but he is planning to join the one who is winning, since the only thing he cares about is that his raven breed don't die. Because if for any reason Isabella ends up losing, Lillian could use the crow breed as sacrifice to create redstone for the gods. Xiang Yi angry tells him that other breeds and races can be uses as well. But Isabella, not knowing anything about it, asks them if they were hiding something from her. Xiang Yi had no other choice, so he tells her the truth about the world, scaring Isabella, since everyone in the Hilo Plains were like food for the gods. Then Dark Hilo tells that the royal demon family has the gods' blood, making them the only ones who weren't controlled by the gods in the Hilo Plains. Then he explains that the war between humans and demons started because humans were the ones that created the most redstones for the gods' revival. So to avoid that, the king demon started a war, making a lot of people die and lowering the reproduction rate and making it harder to create redstones. That shocks Isabella since she wanted to stop the war without knowing that. But Xiang Yi cheers her up, saying that she did the right thing by not letting people die. Dark Hilo said that he will help if she promises that the raven breed would not be sent for sacrifice to create red stones. Isabella doesn't accept since she wants to save all breeds and races. In case I didn't mention it before, the demon tribe is composed by various breeds and races. Dark Hilo warns her about the gods. They are terrifying, and if she wants to oppose, the demon royal family lineage will disappear with her. But even so, she was going to try even if she died. If she gets killed, her descendants will keep fighting against the gods, because she was planning to have children with Xiang Yi. Dark Hilo wasn't satisfied with that answer, so he calls her naive by wanting to defy the gods, and he goes once back. They decide to go straight to the demon's queen palace. On the other hand, in the palace, Lillian was punishing Libri for attacking Isabella. But since Libby was a masochistic, she was enjoying the punishment, since she doesn't want Isabella to be with Lillian. Lillian decides to forgive her because she was enjoying the punishment and she wanted to find Isabella to protect her. Otherwise, others would kill her. The reason why she betrayed her was to make her weak, since for some time she was always behind her. However, since she was so strong, she decided to make her weak so she could protect her. Lillian had used Libby as Isabella's substitute because of her resemblance, which makes Libri hate more Isabella for taking her love from her. On the other hand, Xiang Yi and his group were going to the castle flying, since with that invisibility magic Emery learned with the book Vasily gave to her, it was easier, because the cast had an alert barrier. Once in an upper floor, they decided to go through a hole under the palace to climb it up. Once there, they meet with a demon that had excavated that hole. So when Isabella saw it, she introduced herself as her queen, which makes the demon angry, thinking that she was an imposter. This demon attacked her, but he didn't want to alert the other demons since they thought he was just digging. Isabella asked him why he was like that, because he used to be loving. So to make him remember who she is, she gets close to him and she sings a song. With that, the demon get very happy. He recognized Isabella because she sang that song to sleep. So he helps them get into the palace and he introduces himself as Xiao Kong. He goes so he doesn't attract any attention because of his size. And Isabella uses a magic that learned from Vasily's book to share memories about how the palace is from inside. Then they use the invisibility magic to separate in groups to look out for the dagger Lillian used to take Isabella's power. Xiang Yi and Alina enters Isabella's father warehouse, in which among other things Xiang Yi used a parchment to take all. Then they decide to regroup with the others, since the invisibility effect was about to wear out. But in that moment a demon attacks them, hurting Alina bad. This demon was Pillar Matoso, who could sense their smell humans despite hiding their aura. On the other hand, Roland had caught Emery. Roland was furious because they got in the middle of his way to become king, but Ali was going to fight for real to finish with him once and for all. Isabella, on the other hand, reaches her old room, and when she sees her parents' photo, she asks them for forgiveness for having lost her place as queen. Then, when she was going out, an aura surrounds her, showing where the dagger with her powers were. Going back to Xiang Yi, he was protecting Alina by getting her into a capsule. Matoso, knowing that he was Sophus's brother, he starts to attack him since Sophus killed his brother, Sword God Moxia. Xiang Yi knew that he was going to use his speed, so he forges a very thick crystal where Matoso crashes with and leaves him almost unconscious. And since he didn't want to fight, he decides to escape and later tell the whole truth about Moxia's death. On the other hand, Ali was kicking Roland's ass. Roland was very angry and he throws many demons to kill him. But Ali burns all those demons and gets close to Roland, and with a lethal fire punch he leave him injured bad. Emery is surprised by Ali's power, but it was also dangerous because Ali was getting injured and Roland could regenerate. But Ali was going to give him an opportunity to let him go back to his kingdom to apologize. Roland was starting to be scared since Ali had some white flames in his fists, which made things look blurred around them. But he didn't want to apologize, so he starts to attack again. Lee would show no mercy, so he uses his most powerful punch. It was so powerful that left nothing around. Xiangyi arrives and he uses his drones to start cooling Lee so his wounds wouldn't end up being that bad. Lee ended up passing out after using all of his powers. Emery was healing Lee and Alina, and then they would go and look for Isabella, but in that moment Lillian appears behind them with 2 pillars. She angrily asked Xiangyi about his relationship with Isabella, and he fearless answered that she is his wife, getting Lillian so much angrier. She gets close to him and starts saying that Isabella was hers, but when he tried to escape, he couldn't because Lillian was very strong. Then Biowit discovers Isabella's location, so Lillian was going to welcome her, but Xiangyi tries to stop her. However, Liberi blows him away with a kick. With Biowit's help, they caught Xiangyi, and Liberi wanted to kill him out of resentment because if they haven't returned, Lillian would only think about her and not Isabella. Xiangyi asks Emery to escape, but he wouldn't do it because 2 of her friends were injured and would fight to protect them. Then she takes out a staff, showing us that in truth she was a cleric, so at most she could summon an ancient beast. Xiangyi, on the other hand, was going to fight with Liberi. He uses his new lasers and shoots them from his arms, and Liberi was so confident that they wouldn't do anything to her. But those lasers got through her body, worrying her. On the other hand, Isabella is reunited with Lillian, and Isabella was so mad that she wanted to kill her. But Lillian wanted to give her back the thrones while avoiding her attacks. But Isabella didn't want to kill just for the thrones, but also for killing all of her subordinates and her high priest. While remembering that, she launches some powerful attacks starting to hurt Lillian, who instead of being worried, she was happy because Isabella was recovering her powers. Even if she were massacring Lillian, she would be happy because she was being punished by his former queen. Then Lillian told her that she doesn't know her full power, making Isabella remember that Lillian was a very powerful disciple of her father, but she didn't know about her powers since she never saw her fight, to be able to get by her side. Lillian uses her real form, raising her power so much. On the other hand, Emery summons the King Wolf, Lightning, which makes her happy because it was a very powerful beast. But when the wolf realizes that someone weak summoned it, it didn't want to fight by her side. However, Emery shows her cute side and convinced the wolf to fight, attacking Biowit, but it gets scared when realizing that was going to fight with his former master. The wolf tells Emery that Biowit's real name is Russell, better known as the best cleric from Hilo Plains, surprising Emery with that. On the other hand, after receiving the attack, Liberi asks Xiangyi how he could injure her since that attack didn't have any magic in it. Xiangyi straightly says that it was the power of science and he wanted to show more, so he forges 2 drones with the same kind of lasers he used before. At first she could avoid them, but when a bit distracted, Xiangyi damaged her, leaving some injuries, and then he makes fun of her, because even when she looks like Isabella, she wasn't as strong as her. That made her angry, because he compared her with Isabella, so using her real form, she caught Xiangyi's armor, but he was expecting that. He was already out of his armor, which starts melting and catching Liberi. Since that armor was a nano mecha, Xiangyi gets happy for capturing her, so he wants to kill her with 1 blow with his weapons before she raises her powers. On the other hand, the wolf betrays Emery, going to Biowit's side. She tells that when she was known as Russell, she was a cleric who collected 12 beasts in Hilo Plains, and one of those beasts was the lightning wolf that destroyed Emery's confidence, and she was prepared to fight. But Biowit was going to let her go since she was like a master for her for being a cleric, but she must leave her friends behind. So Emery doesn't accept that, so she decided to fight and uses an ability to disturb Biowit's limbs. However, it doesn't do anything to her because Biowit quit to her human body and makes Emery be affected by her own attack. Emery surrenders, so she asked her to take her as well. Biowit realizes that she was a smart person and she offered her to be her disciple, but Emery refuses. If she accepts, she would teach her every magic she knows and also to summon a beast's equivalent to a dragon, which is the divine ancient beast, the Golden Daughter. That surprises Emery because the Golden Daughter is an ancient beast that lived with the gods, and it was a quiet beast that could cure every disease and could turn every enemy into a rock. Emery wonders how someone that evil could subdue the Golden Daughter, and Biowit accepts that she is evil, but that's how she is now. Then with the power of the Golden Daughter, she turns into rock all 3 of Xiangyi's friends and captured them. On the other hand, Xiangyi throws a nuclear bomb to Liberi, which surprises Lillian because despite not having magic powers, he was powerful, and Isabella attacking her told her that she was right. The man she liked was that strong, making her a little angry, and she starts to remember when she betrayed her love, and she tells that Isabella's father knew he had little time and he was worried about his lineage because all of his children born deaf. But one day her most beautiful wife was a few days away from giving birth, so he ordered Lillian to take care of her. When Lillian touched her belly, she got excited because the baby seemed to like it. And then after some time, Isabella was born alive and the Demon King was very happy and named her his successor. However, her mother was about to die after giving birth, so before that, she asked Lillian to take care of the little princess Isabella, leaves her with a beautiful wife who is the Demon Queen. After discovering Isabella's identity, they decide to escape to the Demon Tribe, where Isabella, meeting Lillian, begins to tell her why she broke her heart before. After the death of Isabella's parents, she became the Demon Queen. Isabella was very kind when dealing with her subordinates, surprising Lillian since she was different from her father, because he was very serious, making his subordinates respect him. Since no one approached Isabella because of her position as a Demon Queen, she was happy to have Lillian as her only friend. Then there was an incident where the pillar of the door called Betty had killed a human despite Isabella having forbidden that, making her angry since she killed them in a horrible way. This because she ripped out the hearts of humans to increase her demon power, so she decides to execute him for having disobeyed her orders. After that, Isabella goes to see the documents to make peace with the human tribe. But the problem was that the conditions for humans to make peace were too harsh. At first he gets angry about it, but she thinks to find a way to make peace, since Isabella does not want her precious civilians to die in the war. Lillian, upon hearing that, gets angry because she wanted to receive all the love from Isabella, so to take out her fury she went to punish Liberty. In that moment, Biowit arrives and tells her that Raymond was going to betray Isabella, so she was going to tell her queen about it. But she joins them when she sees that they can make Isabella weak so Lillian could protect her and Isabella would only loved her. Isabella calls her crazy and she regrets knowing her, so using her real form she plans to kill her. On the other hand, after the explosion, Liberty was suffering the effects of radiation. She began to attack Zhang Yi, but because of the radiation, her body did not work well. So Zhang Yi, taking advantage of that, improved his mecha. Then he planned to kill her with one blow. But Biowit intervenes, attacking him, but does nothing to him since Zhang Yi returns the attack and Liberty shows her true form since her fake body was destroyed. Zhang Yi plans to finish her off, but Biowit threatens him, saying that she will kill his kidnapped comrades if he does so. After saving Liberty, he is surprised by Zhang Yi's power since forging and creation of the gods have the same meaning. Zhang Yi lets her know that his creations are actually science, so Biowit, curious, wanted to know what that was, but she couldn't because she was not free because Lillian controlled his life. Zhang Yi explained to her in simple words what science was, surprising Biowit, since Zhang Yi was the person in the prophecy who will kill the gods. He was surprised, so he asks if she knows Vasily, to which Biowit answers yes, since in the past they were great friends because she was also a slave of the gods. On the other hand, in the fight, Isabella was winning the match, worrying Lillian since despite using her second form she was losing. Isabella begins to use human fencing and then thanks Lillian in quotes, because if she hadn't betrayed her, she would never have experienced living with humans. Then uses a powerful attack splitting Lillian in two, but it did not kill her since with her powers she regenerated her body. In that moment we see a memory where Dorona teaches Isabella the most powerful fencing skill, so she decides to use it, creating a powerful giant sword. Biowit, when seeing that, she is going to help Lillian so she doesn't die, because if that happens she will also be finished. Zhang Yi follows her and plans to make Biowit to join him since she was not so bad. In the fight, the gigantic sword separates, creating 10,000 swords, so Isabella with all her anger throws those swords at Lillian. Lillian, scared, uses a lot of magic to protect herself. However, Isabella put much more force into the swords, which begin to pass through Lillian's shield doing a lot of damage. Then to finish, the swords fall on top of Lillian, causing a great disaster, and Isabella, using a lot of power, ends up going back to her human form. In that moment, Zhang Yi arrives, who, seeing her naked, forges an armor for her. On the other hand, Biowit was barely able to create a shield to protect Lillian. But even so, Lillian was suffering from the swords, so Biowit was going to heal her. However, Zhang Yi begins to attack so that she doesn't. He tries to calm her down since he didn't want to fight, but Isabella stops him because they couldn't kill her because Biowit's body was just a container since his soul was elsewhere. Since Isabella regained the throne by defeating Lillian, tells her to obey, but Biowit didn't want to because she didn't follow Lillian because she was the Demon Queen, but that they knew about her. She plans to introduce herself. First, she tells them that she was a slave of the gods just like Vasily, and it was his fault that Biowit have that body. Lillian had her life in her hands, so if she dies, Biowit will too, and Zhang Yi, knowing that, wants to save her by defeating Lillian. But that would be in vain since a special person will try to kill Biowit because he knows a lot, and Isabella asks about that special person. But they are interrupted by Lillian, who is following Isabella and Biowit. Seeing that they are distracted, makes witchcraft to both of them, messing up the control of their bodies. Then Lillian, worried, asks about Liberty, so Biowit tells everything and gives Lillian Liberty's original body. who is angry and asked to kill Zhang Yi. But in that moment Lillian eats Liberty since she was only worried about Liberty's demon power getting lost. After eating her, Lillian's power raises dramatically so she acquires a new form and she was happy because all of her body was beautiful. But in that moment her body starts to get destroyed little by little because when she ate Liberty she also ate the radiation within her body. Biowit knowing that told him that she would kill him if he doesn't cure her. But Zhang Yi told that it was irreversible since radiation effects were irreversible, so even if she regenerates, he cells would die one by one. Lillian orders Biowit to kill Zhang Yi, but she was undecided since Zhang Yi may be the prophet who will kill the gods. Lillian, seeing her like this, shows her the bracelet where her soul was, being able to kill her, so Biowit, scared, thinks of killing Zhang Yi. But in that moment the spell that Vasily put on him begins to activate, so with that, he captures Biowit with some magical chains. Then Isabella, getting rid of Biowit's witchcraft with her speed, attacks Lillian causing the bracelet to fall off and Isabella was going to pick it up. But in that moment a hole absorbs him. Then Zhang Yi companions are released. But Biowit is absorbed by the same hole as before and Isabella, thinking that it was Vasily, begins to worry. Then Zhang Yi helps his companions. But in that moment more demons arrive with Matoso in front, who wanted to save Lillian. In that moment, Darkulo arrives, who decided to join Isabella, so he tells Matoso to obey the authentic demon queen. And they explain to us that Matoso joined the demon tribe to take revenge on the humans since Angus annihilated his tribe. Isabella, when approaching, lets him know that she knows his suffering. But if he did not join her, his only option was to die. The other demons accept Isabella back as their queen, but Matoso does not accept it since she was accompanied by humans. When making that decision, Darkulo was going to kill him for opposing Isabella, but Matoso was not weak either since he defended himself from their attacks. However, he decides to escape. Because they were two people powerful against one. Isabella decides not to follow him since Matoso's hatred was normal, and then the demon army welcomes her. Isabella orders to call all the ministers to make an important announcement, and within 3 days the coronation ceremony would be held. Zhang Yi was happy for Isabella because she recovered her throne and she approaches him to kiss him, surprising the demons because they will have a demon king. She begins to thank him for all the times he has helped her, so for all that he will the demon king, and they are going to get married, making Zhang Yi happy, since he managed to make Isabella fall in love with him. Both of them were getting affectionate in front of everyone and Lillian was angry, and by still being alive, she did not want to see Isabella with another person. Zhang Yi wonders why she is still alive, and Darkulo tells him that Lillian is immortal since she is an ancient beast, and according to a legend, not even the gods can kill her for being immortal. Since they couldn't kill her, they go to the tomb of demon kings, and after entering, Zhang Yi is surprised by the huge statue of Isabella's father. She tells him that her father put that statue since the remains of the old kings were in the tombs and he wanted to protect them even after he died. Zhang Yi is glad because even though Isabella's father was serious, he was also a good person. But the purpose for which they were there was to leave Lillian lying there. Lillian asked them to not leave her alone, so Isabella, in order to free her, orders her to tell her why someone as powerful as Biowit followed her orders. Lillian agrees to tell them since she lived long before there was intelligent life on the Hilo Plain. In a forest, Biowit captures Lillian, but she was a small beast, and at the end she goes to the Celestial City, where, upon meeting the King God, he congratulates her for her good work and orders her to teach the lower lives about the magical arts. But since the gods weren't going to be there anymore, those 3 slaves were going to have a young master. All that because the gods were going to hibernate, and the one in charge of that preparation was the 3rd self called Ivica. They both get surprised because all of that matched with that they knew, but they were wondering who Ivica was. However, following the story, Biowit had locked Lillian down with some beast. She were there for some days. But when the place started to collapse and once she got out, she was surprised because the Celestial City was under a cave. Then she saw Biowit fighting with Vasily because Vasily had betrayed the young master. He betrayed him because the young master had created a weapon to kill the gods. In that moment the God King arrives and he was disappointed because Biowit was his favorite slave. Biowit does not regret anything, so she didn't care about dying. But Vasily begs the god not to kill her. However, the God King starts controlling him so he doesn't bother him. The God King turns her into a bracelet with his dagger, locking up her soul until she reconsiders. Then he gave it to Vasily, who was crying for what he did to Biowit. And Lillian, after waiting for so long, she finally could get the bracelet, managing to control Biowit, and with that they created a theory where Vasily only used them to catch Biowit. But it was difficult to believe since he was someone hard to read. Then, after knowing all that, they wanted to use the dagger with Lillian, because they want to extract all the power that belongs to Isabella, but they had to do it carefully because they could infect her with the radiation. However, when trying to use the dagger, it didn't work, since it only worked with magic, so they try another way. which is by activating the forging file. Once he do it, he could see Isabella's power in Lillian. So using the dagger, he takes Isabella's power from her and gives it back to Isabella, who recovers all of her power. Then they leave Lillian in the Demon King's tomb forever. Once out of there, Zhang Yi plans to build an army at the forefront to go back to the human kingdom to save Sophices. On the other hand, back into the human kingdom, Sophia's was being punished by Sato, who was doing it to make him fight him, because Sato only finds a purpose to his life by defeating strong people. Then Angus arrives and orders Sophices to join him. Sophices didn't want to since he was loyal only to his king, and he starts to make Angus remember all the bad things he has done. Angus angrily asked him how did he know all that. Sophices says that when Zhang Yi healed him with the red stone, he saw the truth about the world, and now he knows why his adoptive father killed himself. Sophices will continue to support the little king because he thinks that one day with his people's help, they will rebel against the gods to kill them. When Angus hears that, he starts to laugh, and to demonstrate him how fearful the gods are, he shows him how they can kill them. With the red stones he has, Angus creates a human life, making it grow until reach adulthood to then kill him with no effort, since he was his creation. With that, he made him see that the gods, being their creators, they could kill them effortlessly, and the reason he didn't make peace with the demons was to keep the war going. That would make the gods going to hibernation again since they wouldn't find enough lives because of the war. Yet he had to keep the gods with the little lives they had. When Sophices hears all that, he gets in shock because Angus seemed to be the good guy for protecting his breed from the gods. Then Angus leaves him to process everything and decides to go with his army to attack the demon tribe. The Thorn Queen saw everything and she goes to inform Isabella. On the other hand, Betty was escaping from the demon tribe since Isabella was the demon queen again. But then, some semi-human appear. They wanted to kill Betty for killing their generals, and Mitoso had joined them. On the other hand, in the demon tribe, everyone was preparing to celebrate the wedding of the demon kings. At the end, the spouses arrive, where, after everything which normally happens in a wedding, these two are officially married, making all the demons happy. Emery, seeing Isabella like this, throws a hint at Italy so that they get married one day. But just like every man, he did not understand. Then they celebrate with a big party all day. So at nightfall, Zhang Yi takes his wife to his room to be alone, where they start to remember the good and bad times. But to stop talking, they decide to continue with the wedding night, where we see that our Zhang Yi with a lot of effort finally slept with Isabella. After finishing, Zhang Yi finds himself in a dark place, where, when he sees a head, he is scared because it was a god. But he realizes that he looked a bit like Isabella, in that, the god of nothingness opens his mouth to swallow Zhang Yi. But in that moment, he wakes up scared. However, seeing Isabella, he asks why she was in her human form. She explains that the women of the demon royal family, the first time, they transfer the demon power to her husband. That is why Zhang Yi now became a true demon king, surprising him since he can even fly. In that moment, tells her that she had a strange dream with a god that looked like her, astonishing Isabella since that god was known as the founder and Zhang Yi was the only person to dream of the founder. This makes Isabella happy because Zhang Yi was accepted by his ancestors. But in that moment, the message from the Thorn Queen arrives telling them everything. Knowing that Angus wants to start a war, both of them decide to prepare. But before that, Zhang Yi was wondering how strong Angus was. Isabella knew that he was strong since he was able to defeat the former demon king. But now they had Zhang Yi, who can win as he was chosen by the founder. Then after some time, Zhang Yi already had everything ready to start the war, where he also had transmitters since communication is vital in war. Alina was worried that Angus could threaten to kill Sophices, but they told him that he will not do it because he had not started a war. Zhang Yi, using technology, introduces himself before the human army, and he asks them to stop the war since he does not want innocent people to die. However, Sato lets him know that they will not stop. So being that the answer, Zhang Yi started the war where using warplanes he begins his attack. They were killing the knights since the projectiles were very fast. However, Sato destroys the planes with his chains. Herculo is surprised by how Zhang Yi had created so many powerful weapons in a single night, because with that they were terrorizing the knights from the human kingdom. The knights, despite the fact that they kept falling, did not stop. But Zhang Yi with some tanks begins to kill most of the knights to stop the advance. However, some captains use magical barriers to protect them from the tanks, and then they separated on each side to surround the demon army. But Zhang Yi, expecting that, he had created some traps where many of the knights, when falling, and ended up dying, scaring the others because although they dodged the traps, more kept appearing. A captain with his powers wanted to destroy those traps, but he couldn't since they were made of useless wood. In that moment, Barry arrives, who orders to continue forward, and this, because they wanted to use them as bait to get closer to the demons. Out of nowhere, something locks up many knights, and being so dark, the demons take advantage of that to start attacking them, killing more knights. A captain, to protect them, activates a magical barrier, driving away the demons. But in that moment they receive an order from Xiang Yi, which was to withdraw since the reinforcement was arriving. This was the demon Xiao Kong, with which he begins to kill many knights with his tremendous power, so breaking the formation. They escape, where another captain, despite losing many knights, was already about to arrive where the army of the demons were. But Xiang Yi made them get too close to use a new and more powerful weapon, and in a blink of an eye, he started to kill many knights, scaring even the captains who were watching Xiang Yi's powers. Xiang Yi in that moment remembers that he didn't want to start a war since he wanted to calm everything down by talking to the humans. If that didn't happen, he would have no choice but to fight. But he felt bad because he saw that the humans did not want to go to war. But Angus, by making a plot, forced them to go. Isabella is happy for having chosen Xiang Yi. Although he is powerful, he seeks the well-being of his people, and Xiang Yi, at the end of the war, plans to apologize to Sophists for what he is doing. The captains saving themselves from the attack from before. They launched to attack Darkulo and Ili, but being stronger, they managed to neutralize their attacks. Ili was going to give the final blow, but Angus's relatives arrived to fight against them, and the relatives begin to call Ili a traitor for being with the demons. Ili asks to keep the knights away to avoid many deaths, but the captains, angry to hear that he is a traitor, were going to continue fighting for their kingdom. In that moment, the captains called the War Griffin, which are a group of humans who are considered the strongest of the human kingdom. When the War Griffin arrive, the regent's family were confident. They thought they already had the one, but Darkulo, using a powerful form, he caught the humans in a sphere of infinite darkness. Within the sphere, the regent's family, seeing nothing, they were attacking themselves. But in that moment, Darkulo begins to massacre them. They are very afraid, and they start to look for the exit. On the other hand, the War Griffins were being protected by powerful priests. With this, they thought they had the advantage. But the Demon Air Force commanded by Isabella arrives, and they begin to massacre the War Griffins since Emery was also helping. Protecting the demons, they were excited to see that they were winning the war, and Alina wonders why the regent did nothing. Alina, seeing that the human kingdom was being massacred, seems to be going to help them because she leaves her position as commander given to her by Xiang Yi. Angus, on the other hand, wasn't doing anything because he was waiting for Xiang Yi, and his wait paid off, since Xiang Yi and Isabella wanted to talk with Angus. But before that, they show that they have his 3 captains and family in custody, and they were about to die, since Darkulo had massacred them. Angus, using part of his dragon form, goes to see them in person, where he showed them a lot of red stones he had, scaring them a bit. Angus start telling them how he took control of every of Xiang Yi's properties. Even his workers had betrayed him, becoming Angus minions. But since Xiang Yi had talent, Angus swears to them that he would give them everything back and to go back to the kingdom and one day becoming king of the humans. That made Xiang Yi laugh, since Angus' true objective is to become king, while Xiang Yi was just a subject. Angus tells that he doesn't want to be king since he already knew all of the God King's facets, and the human kingdom was built when the gods still dominated everything. From the gods' point of view, everything on Hilo Plains was just like ants, and even when every breed built its own empire, the gods saw them just like little ants, easy to kill. And even if they don't believe him, Angus says that he does everything for the humans' well-being, to keep the gods sleeping and minimizing the need of more sacrifices. Isabella says that maybe she could have done the same before, but now they had a new hope, and it was Xiang Yi. He was the prophet who would kill the gods. Angus laughs and starts attacking them to show them that they are not as strong as they think they are. But Xiang Yi, when defending himself, astonishes Angus because he was very powerful. Then he forges a Demon King-style armor and to keep Isabella out of danger, he sends her to direct the war. Angus finally accepts how strong Xiang Yi is, so he does not plan to hold back, and using his Divine Field ability, he starts to land a few good hits on Xiang Yi. But in an opportunity, he parries Angus's attacks. Angus, angry, changes the color of his Divine Field, making it stronger, so Xiang Yi begins to beat him again. Being able to resist those blows, he waits for an opening, so when he has won, he begins to attack him with his lasers. But since Angus changes color again, he raises his strength, so Xiang Yi tries to escape the Divine Field, but that field chased its enemies, putting them back inside. In that moment, the Divine Field's color changes, making Xiang Yi's armor melt, but still, he could still fight. Then he realizes that the Divine Field wasn't getting better, but every color represented a specific function, and that function only lasted for 20 seconds. So thinking about that and knowing that this ability had a cooldown process, he forges a nuclear bomb, and after a few seconds he throws it to the regent. The explosion was so big that even the knights of the human kingdom were worried that Angus had died, and then we see that Xiang Yi was able to escape from the explosion. He tells everyone that he killed Angus since until now no one had been able to survive his nuclear bomb. But in that moment it starts to snow, causing the knights to start disintegrating, so Darkulo, knowing that it is a dangerous ability from Angus, he covers his comrades in a sphere, Within the Nevada zone, all the people were dying and even Zhang Yi's weapons were disintegrating. So Zhang Yi gives the order to not get close, all that was made by Angus, changing his divine field color. He was still alive even after receiving that nuclear bomb. Darkulo knew about that technique since in the ancient war with humans, Angus used the same ability, killing almost all the demons, so Isabella's father had to intervene. Angus, even though he wanted to fight, he was no rival for the Demon King. But using the snowy area, he was able to fight as equals against the Demon King. Angus, after a single fist, destroys Darkulo's sphere, and the three of them were fighting together, but they couldn't even scratch Angus. Zhang Yi again uses a nuclear bomb, but it was disintegrated by Angus, and Darkulo uses his raven form, increasing his strength since he wants to kill him since the day he met him. However, he was no match for Angus since he turns Darkulo into ashes, scaring him. From now, Angus was stronger than the deceased Demon King. Then with his power, he traps Zhang Yi, who, in that moment, sees that Angus only had few red stones left since he had used many to protect himself from Darkulo's attacks. Angus with a blow makes him go back and then again try to change the color of the divine field. But Zhang Yi was prepared and uses his forge field, which is stronger, having the power of the Demon King. With his new power, he begins to forge useless wood, trapping Angus in a sphere of several layers. Angus was destroying the useless wood, but it kept appearing, and in that moment, next to him a Tsar bomb appears. This bomb caused the biggest man-made explosion in its entire history, so using that against Angus, it created a huge explosion that even destroyed 30 layers of useless wood. Everyone who saw that explosion freaks out since they had never seen it before. Seeing such destructive power, they wondered if the regent was still alive. Even Sato was afraid that the regent could have died, and the knights, full of fear, began to escape. Zhang Yi, not knowing the capacity of that bomb, almost got caught in the explosion, but he could save himself. In that moment, Darkulo arrives, who could survive by a hair, but he has a fur that allowed him to keep fighting. Darkulo couldn't feel any vital sign coming from Angus, so he thought they had won the war. But Angus appears, and he was using his dragon form. Angus wanted to recruit Zhang Yi before, but seeing how dangerous he was, he decides to kill him. So once he grew stronger, he starts to beat Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi wonders how he could protect himself because he at least should be under the effects of radiation. But before he couldn't even finish his thoughts, Angus caught him. Zhang Yi manages to get free with his Demon King power, but Angus begins to make fun of him, since at least Angus seeks the prosperity of humans, while Zhang Yi only talks about killing the gods without promising anything, and angrily catches Zhang Yi again. Zhang Yi, deducing that Angus used 3 red stones to protect himself from the explosion, thought that now he only had 1 left. But Angus tells him that he is wrong since he did not use them to protect himself but to return the attack. Zhang Yi begins to get scared, and Isabella has been worried about. She goes to help him, but Alina betrays them by starting to attack Isabella. When Alina catches Isabella, she tells her that she is on Angus's side since he has always given his life to protect the human race. Also, she knew that Zhang Yi was not Sophus's brother, and in that moment Angus changes his divine field, stopping time, where even Darkulo is affected by it because he is not that strong. Angus tells Zhang Yi that he was able to save himself from the explosion since he used the red stones to use his black divine field, which absorbs attacks, and he accumulates them. With all the power that the black divine field accumulated, he plans to use it to kill Zhang Yi, and Isabella wanted to go help him, but Alina would not let her pass. Angus places the black divine field inside Zhang Yi, making him feel a weird sensation all over his body. Isabella, despite being hurt, she could keep moving to help him, but it was too late because Zhang Yi starts to turn into ashes. So apologizing with Isabella for not being able to keep fighting,